Before I get a whooping, I'm trying to hurry up and do this. I'm supposed to be going walking with my old lady for a minute down the street. Hold on. Let me see.
Oh, I hate these colors. I don't know which one it is. Okay, red.
Let me see if we live on the other side.
Okay, so it's red.
No, it's not.
So it's red.
Hold on.
White.
That's the word. Pink.
Is
it? Okay, he's saying we live.
Yellow. Okay, I see you
Yeah,
guys.
we live.
You guys died on my way out.
Let me mute this on this end. Hold on, I'm finna go to Facebook real quick. I'm gonna get into it and just say peace, 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 peace. Whoever coming in the chat, peace. Shanetta Summers. We got 5 watching right now. I'm gonna hold up until some more people get in the chat. I'm finna share your show real quick. And after I get through sharing the show, we're gonna get into this nice bill. What's up, Black African Power, brother Omar? Peace, brother Omar. Good brother Omar. You be everywhere, don't you, brother Omar? Sure. Yeah, I just gotta remember how to. Let me see here. All right, tag some folks. Here, Sean, sitting right. Good food, y'all. Michael, I don't know, Michael, yeah, Michael.
Build a treehouse tycoon. Oh my gosh.
Robert. And the kid. Damo. Sure who did.
Look at that treehouse.
I don't know where my brother Damo is.
Dude, if you win the game, bro, you go in a treehouse.
Tiffany. Like I said, y'all, give me a few minutes, man, and I'm gonna get into it, man. Give me. Here's a few minutes to share the show too. I mean, y'all can help me share the show too, man. Help me share the show. I'm trying to share the show to a few things. This is gonna be a pretty interesting, nice bill. So just want a few more people to come in and check out the bill. Let's see, Sister Cobb. I can't forget about Sister Cobb. Jetty. Who else?
Oh, I got 30. No, I got 30.
Yeah, sure. That's all. I ain't tagging no more. Peace to folk join the chat. Like I said, give me a minute.
You gotta build up some more.
Help me share the show. Give me about 2 more minutes. We gonna jump into it. I gotta remember how to just share them to all the groups. Let's see. Okay, share the groups. This thing doing something different tonight. Today.
Wow, look at that now.
All right. Let me share on this vintage messenger and I'm finna get started, y'all. I hope everybody doing well today. Vasa, let me know if somebody else jump on the panel, got their hand raised, so I can get them on the panel real quick. Hold on, let me share the show back here. Let me go back this way. Share, copy, link. Okay.
Oh, it's 250. I can't buy it. Okay, not buy it.
What place is it?
Hey, you better got a pool.
I don't see it. I just seen them spots. I'm coming, y'all. I guess I have to put it in. Okay, thanks. Okay. All right. One more. We gonna jump into it. All right, man. I ain't gonna hold y'all, man. I want to say ETM Hotel. Do our Aku, Fatmo Lafayette, Fatmo EY Pele, Fatmo EY Riri, Majuba Iba Egungun, Egungun Kiki, Egungun, Majuba Iba Ilakba, Majuba Iba Ilakba. I always want to give honor and praises to the ancestors, because without the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. Let me get Brother Sutek in here. Promote the panelists. You in here. So again, without the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. So I always have to give honor and praises to the ancestors. We are our ancestors. I also want to give honor and praises to the true and living ancestors out there. Those ancestors, those people I look at as ancestors. I mean, not ancestors, but elders are those who are who meet the criteria. Again, I look at everything from an African perspective. So you have to meet certain type of criteria in order to be an elder. So peace to those who meet that criteria. Again, I'm looking at everything from an African perspective, and just because you older than me does not make you my elder. My guy, brother Sutek. I got brother Vasa, Nicolo Gullah on the panel. Y'all got anything, man, before I jump into the presentation?
Just peace to the panel and peace to the audience right now.
Yeah, man, I just want to say peace to the family, peace to the chat, peace to the panel. Everybody as you coming in, like the show and share the show. Take your pen out, take your paper out, ready to learn something. Peace, fam.
All right. They're my two brothers there, two good brothers right there, man. So before I get started, peace to everybody in the chat, man. That's tuning in. Again, please like the show, share the show. Please tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend about the show, or please share the show with those who you think that may be interested in the information. And I say share the show to those that may be interested in the information. Because sharing the show with somebody don't mean they're gonna click on it. Sharing the show don't mean somebody may be interested in what this particular presentation would be all about, man. But if you know somebody that might appreciate the information, what I'm saying, that may value this information, please share it with them in any other platform that you think that may be interested in this information. Welcome back to the Masi Warrior Clan YouTube channel. Again, I am your Masi Arakurini, Kofi Piesie. So let's get into a show. Again, appreciate everybody again for tuning in, because you could have been doing anything else with your time, but you took a little bit of time to see what Brother Kofi Piesie or the Massive Warrior Clan or Kofi Piesie TV family and the affiliates have to say. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Y'all let me know when my screen is sharing. And am I sounding, is the volume pretty good out there, Facebook world? Facebook world, YouTube world. Let me know in the chat. Am I clear? Am I sounding clear? You know, before I get started, I want to make sure I don't sound like a robot. Yeah, what's up, son? No, sir. It's cold out there, son. I might let you go out there in a minute. Y'all probably can get out there on the trampoline. Okay. Am I clear? Y'all let me know. One, am I clear? Y'all can hear me. I don't sound like I'm going in and out. I know it's a delay on the other end. Let me get Sean in here. Promote the panelists. All right. Yeah, you do. I sound like a robot, a little staticky.
Yeah, you're a
I
little
need
static.
It's a little static.
Oh, so somebody else already on here, huh?
Yeah.
So I've been sitting here just waiting to get on the planet for no reason then.
Yep. Somebody could say some
Interesting.
low system resources may affect audio quality. Try
Hey,
closing
take
some
your
applications.
take your YouTube off.
Yeah, it's saying, yeah, hold on. Let me
Take your
do that.
YouTube off your browser. Only thing
Okay.
you really want up really is the Zoom and your presentation.
Okay.
Because it's draining your stuff when you start
Yeah.
getting copy like that.
Hold on. Let me
And you got AT&T, you know what I'm saying? So you really ain't got no good internet.
Yeah, you right.
Take my shots where I can.
Yeah, you right, man. So am I sounding a little bit better now?
Yeah, you
You
good.
let me know, y'all.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
good. You good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Getting better.
I'm telling you, you good.
Okay, then I want to make sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let me mute my mic, man. First, let me say this, man. Let me Black African power, family.
Oh shoot. Yeah. I'm about to start back doing it. That's you sounded good, Sean. Let me know my screen show, y'all. How about share my screen full screen?
Yep, you sharing on this end.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me get off of this thing right here. Let me get off of this here. All right. Today's presentation is it's a long title. Let me make sure I'm full screen. I know I look like I know it's kind of late on my end too. But is the screen, am I showing? Yeah, I'm showing full screen. Okay. Today's presentation is called Procreation. Life is the highest value and priority in African culture. Now, can you be African in a relationship with the same sex? It's a question mark behind it. So again, I'm going to read it again. Procreating life is the highest value and priority in African culture. Now, can you be African in a relationship with the same sex? All right. I always have to put a disclaimer out here before I get started. I am not a teacher, but merely a student sharing information, and that information provided for the educational purpose only. And if you are in doubt, do the research and have it verified by someone qualified. I reserve the right to change the focus of this presentation to shut down, sell, or exchange the terms or used at my own discretion. All trademark, design rights, copyrights, registers, names, mottos, logos, avatars, the stigmas, and marks used or cited by this website are the property of their respective owners. I reserve the right to add information as it comes available or change the available in the future. Input wanted, changes, deletions are encouraged. As I learn, we all learn. Let's get this. Let's get this supposed to be this coach. Let's get the coach. Let's get this coach. Should have went back and looked at it. Those are my two sayings. Believe in both of those sayings. Stand behind those saying. As we learn, we all learn. And let's get this coach. Okay. Can you be African in a relationship with the same sex? Question. Can you? Let's see. All right. Within the context of African religion, pregnancy is always a special, much hoped for, and therefore cherished event. Although marriage is certainly one of the criteria moments in the human life cycle. Let me read that again. It says here, you follow my culture, my cursor. Although marriage is certainly one of the criteria moments in the human life cycle along birth, puberty, and death, the main, if not only, purpose of marriage is procreation. I'm going to read that again. Although marriage is certainly one of the criteria moments in the human life cycle, along with birth, puberty, and death, the main, if not only, purpose of marriage is procreation, right? So a lot of people that have been following, and watch my presentations and stuff. I did a presentation last year called I did one on the African rites of passage. Sean talks about the rites of passage a lot. I talk about the rites of passage a lot on this channel. I broke down each rites of passages, which are demarcation stages of life, correct? And one of the rites of passages is marriages. We got the birthright, which is one of the rights. And in with the birthright, you have the naming right. So we talked about the naming right. Even I needed a whole separate presentation on the naming ceremonies. But you go from the naming, then you go to the adulthood. We talked about there are 2 or 3 different stages in the adulthood right. And you have the marriage right. Okay, so you have the marriage right after the adult right. So, and I talked about in this presentation, marriage is the most important right. This is a presentation that I did on the master. You can go back in the archives whenever y'all get some free time and check out that presentation, which was a nice presentation. It is called Marriage is the Most Important Right in African Culture. I truly believe that it is. And so when you talk about marriage, you talk about procreation. When you talk about procreation, you talk about marriage. You cannot talk about marriage without talking about procreation. You cannot talk about procreation without talking about marriage. Or there are a few ethnic groups that may not really practice where you can have a child outside of marriage. There are very few, very, very few out of over 3,000 some ethnic groups that actually practice this, that you have to be married in order to create. And it is a life is in no matter what culture in Africa, it is the highest value. The highest value is to procreate, is to bring life. So keep that in mind. In fact, some African society, marriage is not considered final or complete until a couple first pregnancy has occurred. So even when you go through this stage or this rite of being married, right, man and woman, and even when we talk about man and woman, when we go through the adult righthood, when someone is going through his rites of passage to become adult, whether it's the male or female, again, we talk about them being exiled, right? Not exiled, but them actually leaving the community and they're going out into the forest. No matter what group we look at, we done talked about a lot of ethnic groups in Africa. And a lot, when we deal with their rituals, we deal with their rites of passages, they are always outside of the community in the forest. This is where they go through their rites of passage. They go through their different stages or different levels of education and learning, correct? So even when the woman goes through her rites of passage to become adult, so she can be recognized by her community as an adult now, right? She has reached puberty. She learns certain things as well as the man. And we talked about this. The man learns what his role is. The woman learns what her role is. You know, so they are being taught about the man's role being with a woman and the woman's role being with a man. And a woman is being taught that a woman is supposed to be with a man, and a man is and a man or the young youth is talking about a man is supposed to be with a woman. It is talking about once you reach this demarcation stage, the next demarcation stage is marriage. And when you talk about marriage, again, you have to talk about procreating, because it is one of the highest value and one of the one of the most important priority in African culture is to procreate, to bring life, to strengthen the clan, tribe, society, or community, and to bring other families together. So, in fact, in some African society, marriage is not considered final until you completed until a couple first pregnancy has occurred. This is the case because of much emphasis it is placed on the affirmation and perpetuation of life as the highest value and priority in African culture. Pregnancy is in a critical significance for women in Africa. Indeed, it marks a passage from the status symbol of a woman to that of a mother. So now the woman, she has become an adult. Then the next step that she has completed the adult rites of passage. Now the next step is the marriage rites of passage. So now she is being recognized when she, as an adult, she's recognized as a woman, no longer a child. Now when she goes through the next rites of passage, and again, with marriage comes procreation. Procreation, marriage, both go hand in hand. You cannot talk about marriage without talking about procreation. You cannot talk about procreation without talking about marriage. You cannot talk about marriage without talking about male and female. So now she is recognized as a woman, and now when she is married and then she procreates, she is now coming from a woman to motherhood. Now she's been recognized as a mother. One demonstrates an ability to bear a child, confirms one creative power as a female, and thus one's ability to participate in the cosmic drama of life transmission of regeneration. From this, African woman draws a sense of self-worth that can hardly be a new identity and social prestige. From this, African woman draws a sense of self-worth that can hardly be underestimated. They also gain a new identity of great social prestige. So it is a great prestige, and not only that, they are revered for bringing life. Conversely, a woman's failure to achieve pregnancy will be a source of great sorrow. Hold on. I'm skipping. Will be of, I don't know why this thing keep popping. Okay, hold on. Let me get Michael Hope in here. That's why I'm doing that. Nobody said nothing. Peace, brother Michael. Peace, peace. Mike, you on? Brother Michael Hope. Is he in here, y'all?
Okay, you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Peace to everyone.
Yeah, peace, peace. Conversely, a woman failures to achieve pregnancy will be a source of great sorrow and sometimes a cause for divorce. Yes. Clay pots are commonly used as a metaphoric sense of representing the woman's womb waiting to be filled with life. It must be remembered that clay is widely associated with stuff of life, with human beings often reported, and creation stories as having been modeled out of clay. So clay is also important. And when you look at a lot of different ethnic groups in Africa, when you're dealing with their traditions and you're dealing with their culture, when we're talking about their mythos or their myths or their folk tales or folklores, man, or their creation stories, a lot of the creation stories, it talks about their creator molding man or molding woman and man out of clay. So men socially identify is also, of course, greatly and positively affected by pregnancy. Hold on, let me make sure I didn't get my slide. And I think that's exactly what happened. Y'all, hold on 1 second. And I did do that. Man, we'll get back to that. Yeah, I making sure my slides ain't out of order because I wanted to go into the clay a little bit, but we're gonna get back into the clay in a minute. In a minute. But again, when dealing with clay, again, when you deal with their creation stories, a lot of it you hear about man creating, I mean, the creator creating man and woman or creating humans out of clay. And we'll get more back into the clay and how important clay is also to African culture and the reason why implement in the creation stories. All right, men socially identifies as also, of course, of greatly and positive affected by pregnancy. Pregnancy enables a man to establish his vitality. Among the Manyinka people from the eastern highlands of Zimbabwe, for example, a man failure to have children will preclude him from becoming an ancestor. So according to this ethnic group in Zimbabwe, the Manyika people, if a man does not procreate and bring life, then he will not become an ancestor. Because again, when we're talking about the rites of passages, the last demarcation stage is death, right? And after death, you become an ancestor. But listen, again, you cannot be an ancestor if you don't meet certain type of criteria. And if you don't meet certain criteria, and only way you can be an ancestor if you're an elder. And everyone in African culture cannot be an elder if they don't meet certain criteria. Then they will only be recognized as an older. So it's a difference between an older and an elder in African culture. And in the conscious community, I see that they are confusing a lot of things as well. A lot of people that they are saying are elders are nothing but olders. And I will not call them elders. Elders, I will call them olders. Again, I look at everything from an African perspective, from an African worldview. So if they don't meet those certain type of criteria, then they are older to me and not an elder. But again, you cannot be an ancestor unless you are an elder. An elder is another stage of life or a demarcation stage of life or a rites of passage that you have to go through. So in the Zimbabwe, we're in the Yinka culture in Zimbabwe, if a man fails to have a child, then it precludes him from becoming an ancestor. But in other groups, in other ethnic groups all over Africa, they have certain things, stipulations too, and we'll get into that a bit later. But just according to the Manyika, and again, when I'm doing things, I'm going to always say things, and I'm going to bring you the tribes, clans, that do, that talks about this and do certain things. In many other African society, childless men will not be entirely to full burial rights, if any at all. Certainly because one is a primary duty of children is to remember their parents when they are later die. Childless men and women cannot expect to continue being members of their communities much longer after dying because there will be nobody to speak their name. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation as well. Finally, pregnancy is also quite important for the family and the communities as a whole because both are expected to be strengthened by the arrival of the new members. And again, that's why I say procreation in African culture is one of the highest value and the most priority in the culture, because again, it not only strengthens that community, it also bonds and ties another family in with another family. So there is strength in numbers. They can accomplish a lot in numbers. So pregnancy again is the highest value. And again, you cannot, and when you talk about marriage, you're talking about procreation. When you talk about procreation, you are talking about marriage. Pregnancy, therefore, is never a concern in just a couple, but also all those who surround them. So it's not only important to the couple, but it's also important to the community or those that surround them, because again, it strengthens their community. This just a picture of a family. Uh, Thought it was a beautiful picture. Again, you see the man, the woman, and the children. And therefore pregnancies as well are believed to get gifts from the ancestors. In fact, many African societies, a child to be born is an ancestor returning. As a result, many will seek with the help of the diviner to identify the ancestors. And yes, y'all done heard us talk about this on the channel as well. Many of presentations I have done, Sean mentioned it a lot as well. Um, in most African cultures, they believe that the ancestors are returning. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the presentation as well. Ancestors are returning. I touched on this a little bit when we did the session on the session another channel last night when we was talking about the naming ceremonies of naming the child. And I talked about a little bit about the divine, and we'll get back into that a little bit later on in the presentation. When a child is born, he or she may bear the name of a reincarnated ancestor or the name linking to the child to the ancestors. In case of infertility, the ancestors are also quite predictable, automatically suspected of interference with a couple's ability to get pregnant. In the case of, and I did the same thing, but I'll read it again because I meant to delete that presentation. But again, when you sleeping, you working on things late at night, in the morning, your mind get to doing other things. But I'll read it again. In case of infertility, the ancestors also quite predictably automatically suspected to interfere with the couple's ability to get pregnant. And again, for those who understand African culture, a lot of ethnic groups in Africa believe that once you become an ancestor, the ancestor can also have his hands in human human affairs. Appropriate rituals will be performed to appease the ancestors' anger and to get them to change their minds and allow a child to come. Given the importance attached to the pregnancy, it is easy to understand why pregnant women become the object of much care. Failure to maintain spiritual balance could result in abortion of the pregnancy or the death of the mother. So when a woman becomes pregnant, she is very, very well taken care of. Thus, many steps are taken throughout Africa communities to protect the unborn child and their mother. The taboos associated with pregnancy. One must mention those related to sexual intercourse. Although some societies will not permit a pregnant woman of her husband to have further intercourse after the pregnancy is discovered, other societies may permit sexual relationships to continue up to a certain point. And I know a lot of us, we be wanting to get it in the whole time of the pregnancy, but in certain societies, you look at some societies, once a woman becomes pregnant, intercourse is automatically cut off immediately. And certain cultures, other cultures in Africa, a woman is permitted to have sex up to a certain month, some 3 months, some 5 months, from what I have seen. Okay, for example, among the guru, and again, we're gonna keep giving you an example ethnic groups. Among the Gurunsi in southern Burkina Faso and northern Ghana, sexual relationships are prohibited between a pregnant woman and her husband, beginning around the 3rd month of the pregnancy. At the time, the elaborate ritual known as linguam rituals is performed by the husband's sister or the sister of the husband's father to protect the pregnancy. So you can see here with the people, the Gurunsi people in Burkina Faso and northern Ghana, you know, they are able to have intercourse up until the third month of the woman pregnancy, and there's certain rituals that they do in order to protect the woman's pregnancy, so she can have a healthy pregnancy. Shaved leaves are thrown onto the couple lying in the bed. Their hair is then shaved or cut shorter, while the bow is placed at the man's feet as a metaphorical acknowledgement of brutality. It is understood that when the Laguin rituals has been completed, sexual abstinence must be observed. The violation of the prosecution is, it is believed, could result in the death of the child. So this is what the Gurunsi people believe in. This is one of the rituals that go through after the 3rd month. They have this ritual that they do where, again, the man and woman hair is shaved shorter. Shaved leaves are thrown on them while they are laying in the bed. A pot or a bowl is placed at the man's feet, which is metaphoric analogy of brutality. And from that ritual, they are taking an oath to have to not have sex until after the birth of their child. And they believe that if you break this, then it could result in the death of the child. Sexual taboos are not, however, the only restriction faced by pregnant women and her husband. In fact, among the same Gurunsi people, the women and the man must avoid dealing with the cultivation of touching metal. So this is another thing that they believe, that cultivating the land, you know, out there digging up the dirt in the earth and planting certain things, that is a no-no according to their tradition for the man as well as the woman while she is pregnant, or touching metal. And this is not just only with the Gurunsi people in Burkina Faso. Other groups as well have seen the same thing, a pregnant woman with touching metal. I think it's a thing that they believe that, you know, and we say it's just superstition, the same thing that we do. We get away from a round metal object when it's raining and lightning. The same thing there, they believe if they're around certain types of metals or touch certain types of metal, then lightning can strike them and kill them. Here you got the Aganasi people, the Akabi people, and the Kikuyu people. Similar among the Agasa people, carry fire is prohibited from both an expected mother and father. Tools and weapons made of iron must also be removed from the sleeping quarters of the pregnant woman to avoid attracting lightning. And in the case among the Akamba and the Kikuyu people, so also the Kikuyu people, the Akamba people, and the Agasa people, you see the same thing. The Kikuyu people is from East Africa. We know they are from East Africa. We know the Kamba people and the Agasa people are from West Africa. So you can see in East Africa and West Africa, they have those same superstitions where they get rid of all of the metals in the house, or they cannot touch the metals while one is pregnant. Here is the Ganasa people. These are the people I was talking about right here. Here is the Akamba people right here. Just giving y'all a visual of these, where the Kakaba people is from Kenya, as well as the Kikuyu people. They are from Kenya as well. These are some of the Kikuyu people here, are some of the elders here. Another set of taboos quite common in Africa are food prohibited related to pregnancy. For instance, a pregnant lily woman will not eat fish to avoid upsetting the spiritual world. This is due to the association of fish with spiritual known Minjihi, which plays an essential role in daily Lili Africa. And you see this in all over Africa, east, west, south, central, and so forth. When you deal with when we're talking about the different totems. The different totems, we know a lot of the different totems, African tribes, clans, they have different totems. And when they have these different totems, we're talking about different animals. So these animals that may be a totem, like here, you can see with the Lili people totem is the fish. Also, it is a part of the creation story. So the fish is off limits. So it's just according to what totem. If you have an antelope, the antelope is off. You can't hunt the antelope. You can't kill the antelope. You can't eat the antelope because it is a totem. It is one of your totems for your clan, tribe, or society. And I'll be dealing with those totems, not in this presentation, but in another presentation that I'll be doing with the Badak people, the mountain cave dwellers. So yes, I said mountain cave dwellers. We always resort cave with the white man, so we're going to talk about these people in Senegal that live in the mountains and in the caves. But that's another presentation, maybe coming soon. I don't know if it's going to be on the Mossy or Kofi Piesie TV, so just be on the lookout for that. But I'll be dealing with a lot of those different totems in Senegal, because you have a lot of different, especially when you deal with the Sira people in Senegal. The Sira people are broke up into a lot of different clans. So we'll be talking about that. We'll even be talking about brother Black Panther, Benjamin I. Njai, brother who also is head of the Master Warrior Clan channel. Njai, his last name is Njai. Njai is a tribe or a clan that is a part of the Sira people, and their totem, I'll just get that, their totem is the lion. So I'll be talking about why they choose the lion as their totem as the Njai, but Njai is a tribe which Brother Ben belongs to. But anyway, the Minge Aboard is the deepest part of the equator forest, where they like to dwell in stream, thus their affinity with fish. In some other societies, a woman must be secluded following some point in the course of her pregnancy. For instance, a pregnant Igbo woman must live in isolation after the 5th month of her pregnancy. So you see here with the Igbo people in Nigeria, which is in West Africa, after the 5th month, the woman is isolated from the community. Again, all those measures are taken to protect the unborn child and the mothers, because pregnancy is the highest value by all. The mother, because the pregnancy is the highest value of all. So you keep seeing, as I keep showing you these different ethnic groups in Africa, the highest value is procreating, is a woman and a man coming together and procreating and bringing forth life to strengthen the community and to bring a bond and tie to other family, tie them on two families together. So again, procreating is the highest value and is one of the most priorities in African culture. So they take all types of precautions in order to protect the mother so that she's able to have a good birth. So they do whatever they have to do in order to do that. So they take it seriously by protecting the unborn child in the womb of these African women. A woman is not allowed to attend some social functions or perform some social tasks. For instance, a woman may not be permitted to go to some funerals or involved with any morbid social issues. I mean, and we do that today. We don't want our women that are pregnant to go to different funerals to feel this type of sorrow and sad uh, energy that may be involved in funeral. So we try to keep our women as well here away from funerals, or keep our women away from certain groups of people that may bring out certain types of bad energy or vibes. Clay. Now we're back to clay. I showed you a few slides back how they also make clay, or they say clay pottery is also is a resemblance of a woman's womb, inside the woman's womb, and etc. So, and I told you that clay is also one is important to a lot of these different ethnic groups in Africa. And when we talk about clay, when you deal with a lot of their folklores or their creation stories or creation myths, you always hear the creation myths making it out of clay. I know a lot of them we hear about, one in Kemet. We'll talk about that in Kemet, but you know, there are other creation stories, not only in Kemet, where a creator is fashioning man and woman or human out of clay. So clay is very also important to African culture. So throughout Africa, creation stories according to which the first human beings were created out of clay are common. One may think, for example, of the Yoruba creation story in which Obatala, the son of Oleron, Odemari, which are one and the same, as I continue to say, when you start to look and study the culture and traditions of Ifa, you see and study the different the Odus. You will see some Odus result to Oleron. You see some Odus result to Odemari. But Oleron and Odemari are one in the same, but some Odus may establish Odemari as something different and Oleron as something different. But they are the creator and they are one in the same. So the Abatala, which is Orisha, the son of Oleron, the supreme Yoruba god, created the first 16 human beings out of clay, which he molded. The Solinke of the Sudan, and again, I'm trying to bounce back and forth when I talk and give y'all examples with these different ethnic groups as I've been given. I've been trying to touch all over Africa and not just base it just in West Africa as well. So the Suluk of the Sudan also tells a story which God, Juk, made human beings out of clay. The different colors that distinguish people. God knitted the bodies of the first human beings out of clay. An account magnificence to the Ewe stories about the coming into the world of the first woman and first man. So you can see with the Yoruba people, the Suluk people, and the Ewe people, they also have creation stories where the creator is making the first human beings or man and woman out of clay. So clay is also important in a lot of these different ethnic groups on the continent of Africa or in these different countries in Africa. In fact, a common metaphor for God as he or she created the world and all that exists in the world is a potter. So, and the potter. So I showed you the pottery, and then even when we talk about potters or we talk about the potter's wheel, here is here is Kanun. So I know a lot of people that study the Ramich culture in Kemet, the Kemetu on the walls. You have Kanun, which is a netter or a netru. He creates a fashion man on his potter's wheel. So here is Kanum accompanied by the goddess Hekwyt molding Ahi in the relief from the Mammoth's birth temple of Deodora temple complex. So again, this is on the walls in the Deodora temple. This is in Kemet here. Kanum is fashioning Ahi here. So again, clay is very important. Clay, although clay is definitely not the only material from which humans are said to have come, it refers as the very stuff of life, nonetheless appears frequently. This is understandable given the omnipresence of clay in Africa's lives. It provides the ground upon which Africa walks and grows their foods, and it is a mineral commonly used to make plates and pots, among other things related to the sustaining life. So again, clay is very important. Again, it is in part of the creation story. They also use it to make their pottery, to make their plates, to eat off of, to set things in, and also to plant things in order to grow food, to sustain their existence or their lives. So clay is very important to the creation story. And again, I implemented that because we're talking about pregnancy, we're talking about reproducing, procreating, and bringing forth life. Furthermore, a woman is not allowed to attend some social functions or perform social tasks. For instance, a woman may not be permitted to go to, and I don't know why I did it again. Some of these things are repetitive. Like I said, I put this together on the fly at the last minute, late last night. Started working on it some yesterday, but stopped, and then late last night, tried to finish it up for you guys. Baby showers. Unlike Western countries, in African culture, there is no baby showers. The pregnant women is forbidden to accept gifts or celebrate the pregnancy until the birth of the infant. It is believed that accepting gifts and celebrating the baby before the birth will invite the anger of the gods and the ancestors. Some African cultures believe the gods and the ancestors will curse the pregnancy mothers and the unborn child with death, illness, bad luck, and evil possession. So on, here it is a part of our culture here in America, where when our loved one is pregnant, it is a baby shower that is put on. She is showered, we get it, we put together a certain type of function. We invite families and friends, we play games, we give gifts, and etc. But in Africa, according to a lot of the traditions, you know what I'm saying, and what they believe, that they will be cursed if they celebrate too early the pregnancy. So they wait until after the birth of the child. So here, the unmarried woman pregnancy could be dreadful and unbearable. There is a revolting stigma appending to the unwedded pregnancy. And again, most African cultures, I'm gonna stop there before I go any further. Again, in most African cultures, again, there are over 3,000 some ethnic groups. And there were very few that I have studied. And I have brought y'all a lot of different ethnic groups and their traditions or indigenous traditions. And throughout my studies over the years, there are very, very few that have children without a wedlock. And it is frowned upon to have children without wedlock. And again, when we go and we understand the rites of passage, a lot of the rites of passage that they have, again, you have the birthing right, which is also underlined with the naming right. And then you have the adult rights, which you go to 2 or 3 different stages of the adult right. And then once you become an adult and recognize an adult, the next rites of passage is the marriage right. And again, marriage, you can't talk about marriage without procreation. And you can't talk about procreation without marriage. So they go hand in hand. So the step is to get married and then have children, strengthen the community, tie and bring other families together with your family through marriage and through pregnancy or through children. So it is frowned upon in some cultures. And again, I give you the good, I give you the bad. On my Sea Warrior Clan channel, we give you the good and we give you the bad. We're not gonna give you something and then we don't put the rest of it in. And certain things I told you I agree with, and certain things that I don't agree with. And I did a series, and I'm not through doing a series on in the Sudan, but we talked about the Hamhara people, and I talked about the Kavro people, and those two people, they just particularly dealing with those two for right now, they frowned on having children out of wedlock. And it is certain things that I expose on those 2 different presentations, what they do to the children that is born out of wedlock. I do not agree with that in no way, form, fashion. So certain tribes or ethnic groups may harm the child because the child is born out of wedlock. But let's go further. An unmarried woman pregnant could be dreadful and unbearable. There is a revolving stigma appending to unwedded pregnancy. And it was the same stigma we had here. Now it is not the same. You used to shame and I'm just speaking, I'm just speaking for the South. I can't speak for no other area. I'm from Mississippi. I'm from the deep South. So down here in the South, it was frowned upon, especially when I was growing up. It was frowned upon to have children out of wedlock. You could shame your mother and your father if you had a child and you wasn't married. I mean, it was serious here. So, and if you were, they hid you. They hid you to remove it. I know a couple of incidents with me growing up, me thinking about me growing. I mean, when I was growing up, I know 2 families actually moved their daughter away, so no one would find out that their daughter had a children at an early age, and she had it out of wedlock. So I mean, you see some of the same things here. Since pregnancy before marriage is considered forbidden, strangers and family members will ridicule, ostracize, or even subject the unmarried woman to violence. The mother will be be considered a whore and a prostitute. The pregnancy will be seen as a shameful event for the mothers to be and her family. So I mean, so like I said, I've seen a lot of this growing up here in the South. We didn't I didn't see nobody, the child, get harmed. And just going back and speaking again, just because I give you the good and I give you the bad, and I don't agree with a lot of different things that I have presented on here dealing with different ethnic groups. But like I say, I'm gonna give you the good, I'm gonna give you the bad. But just going back with the Cairo people for a minute in the Sudan, right? So with a person born out of wedlock, there the child is they stuff the child that is born out of wedlock with dirt. They stuff dirt in the child's mouth until the dirt suffocates the child because the woman had the child out of wedlock. Let's talk about the Amhara people. They leave their child out in the wilderness for a beast to come and devour the child. Just leave it out there because the child is born out of wedlock. I don't agree with these tactics of what they're doing, but like I said, I give you the good and I give you a bad. So I'm just giving you 2 examples of 2 different ethnic groups that do certain things if a child is born out of wedlock. Then you may have other groups, do other ethnic groups that may have a child out of wedlock. They may not do nothing to the child or the mother, but they may exclude her from the community. So she will have to be moved off where the child may be raised by another family member somewhere else in another African country or another town or so forth. Out of wedlock pregnancy. These out of wedlock pregnancies are considered shameful. These pregnancies are birthed are not celebrated. Sometimes to avoid stigmas associated with these pregnancies, the families may disown the pregnant woman. The children from out of wedlock pregnancies are considered bastards. The families are forced to unmarried mothers to be married to the father. So in some instances, you will see that they will force. And I don't know, I've seen you, we done seen it here too. You done got my daughter pregnant. You gonna marry my daughter. We do it here. We done seen it. You done got my daughter pregnant. You finna marry. So here, they are forced to marry the father. Marry the father of the fetus. She may compel to marry very old or get married into a polygamous marriage. Some of these unmarried mothers will be separated from their families because they will, which I just spoke about a while ago, they will be sent away, far away relatives. The babies then either raised by their grandparents or other relatives. In some cases, most of the out of wedlock babies are sent to orphans or unfortunately left to die, as I spoke about when we're dealing with the Amhara people. They do that, or the Kara people. Most women will illegally abort the pregnancy. Abortion is illegal in some African countries. With the infiltration of adoption of Western culture into many African cultures, these beliefs are no longer. widely practiced or hold true today. Most families will support their unmarried relatives. What more, Africans are now beginning to celebrate their pregnancies before the birth of their babies by having baby showers. So now, do Western culture influence, other people coming to live in Africa, through colonization and slavery and so forth like that? A lot of their beliefs and traditional and their ways are changing. They are being influenced by Western culture now. So a lot of these extremes of having children without a wedlock, the child is now accepted, the child is not harmed, the woman is not ostracized, is not called derogatory names, she is not being exiled from different from the community. Now, and we talked about baby showers, in Africa, and the culture in America, we have baby showers, but due to the Western influence now, you starting to see certain other ethnic groups are starting to do the same thing. They are starting to celebrate before the birth instead of waiting till after the birth, believing that if they celebrate too early, then it will cause the child to die early, or to be cursed, or the woman not even having a child at all. So a lot of these things are fizzling away. In many African culture, pregnancy and birth is revered because it is considered as the reproduction of future generations and the birth of ancestors. I'm gonna read that again. In many African culture, pregnancy and birth is revered because it is considered as the reproduction of the future generation and the birth of ancestors. Africans believe in reincarnation. African cultures believe in procreation. So again, without marriage, you can't talk about procreation. You can't talk about procreation without talking about marriage. Those goes hand in hand. A lot of African cultures are ethnic groups across that continent. It is the highest value. It is the highest value is to procreate, and one of the most important priorities in African culture is to procreate. And again, it is to strengthen the communities. It is to strengthen the families. It is to tie families together. So life is the highest priority. They are not anti-life. So family, is it African, or would you be accepted in most of the 3,000 and something ethnic groups to like the same sex, which is done procreation? So this is a question. This is why I'm asking. Are you considered African, or can you call yourself African, or will you be accepted by over 3,000 and some ethnic groups that says that life is the highest value in their culture? Procreation is the highest value, and one of their most important one of their most priorities is to bring life, not non-life, but to procreate. And I'm saying that because two men laying together cannot bring forth life. Two women laying together cannot bring forth life. That is anti-life. I have yet to see another woman laying with another woman get her pregnant. I have yet to see two men laying together and this other man is getting pregnant by another man and bringing forth life. So again, is can you say you African? Are you African? Or would you be accepted by any ethnic group in Africa if you like the same sex? This is a question. So now I'm going to ask, so I'm asking the people in the chat. I know it's a delay. I hadn't been looking in the chat neither. I mean, Snotball, calm down. I'm hollering. I just talk loud. I just talk loud. So, you know, anybody gonna answer? Eric B. Keswi, if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong, I'm sorry. That's a con too, ain't it? Homosexuality and lesbian is anti-African. That's correct. Anybody else gonna answer? Somebody else may say it. Infinite Mind said, hell no. Peace, brother. My question is can you be African or call yourself African, or will you be accepted by these 3,000 and some ethnic groups? Will you be accepted by them if you like in the same sex? Because I wanted to show through the presentation that procreating is the highest value in African culture. It is the number one priority in African culture is to procreate and bring forth life. So Kyle Sykes says, yes, you can. So explain to me, Sister Kylie, how if you are a part of a group, just I'll give you an example. Just say you are a part of the let's say the Kikuyu people. Let's say you're a part of the U people. Let's say you're part of the U people, right? And in their group or in their society, their number one thing is to bring forth life. In order to bring forth life, you have to be with a man and a woman. And even when you look at most of these ethnic groups, when we talk about the rites of passages, they have rites of passages. They have demarcation stages of life that they have to go through, right? So again, once you get from the birthright, you get to the adult right. Once you get from the adult right, what is the next right after the adult right? The next right is the marriage right. And in between time, before you get to the marriage right, you get into the adult right. The adult right is different levels of information. You are exiled from the community where you're in the forest. The women is with the women, the men is with the men, and they are being taught certain things. They are being taught the history. They are being taught certain things. So when they're being taught, I even showed this in the rites of passage presentation with some of the rights and even the schools that they had where they was teaching through these rites of passage that a man is supposed to be with a man and a woman is supposed to be with the man is supposed to be with a woman and a woman is supposed to be with a man because they believe in procreating. And then they tell you the role of a man, they tell you the role of a woman. You see what I'm saying? They also show that one needs the other. No one is superior than the next. So all these things they are learning as they are going through their rites of passage. So once they reach the adult right, they go through the marriage right. And again, when you talk about the marriage right, you have to talk about procreation. When you talk about bringing forth life, you have to talk about marriage. Both of those goes hand in hand. So if you are part of any of these groups, you will look down upon because it is according to a lot of their traditions. It is frowned upon to lay down with the same sex because you cannot procreate. You cannot bring forth life. How can you bring forth life? So I can't. So if I want to be a part of the U tribe, you know what I'm saying? I have to go by their ways, their tradition, their laws. So if their laws stating me that in order for me to be recognized in the community as a U, I have to meet these certain types of criteria. So I have to learn these certain types of information, and that is for a man to be with a woman is to be with a man, and it is highly revered in the community for you to be married and have a child. My thing's spinning. I don't know if anybody's saying anything else. I'm watching from my phone the chat, but I can't. Anybody else said something? It is deaf. It is a deaf style. Yes, it is a deaf style snap box. I mean, I'm not downing anyone. Don't get that wrong. I'm not downing anyone because I have people in my family. Um, and I still love them. Do they know my position on it? Of course they know my position on that. Do I treat them differently? No, I do not treat them differently. Do I love them any differently? No, I do not love them any differently. But they know my views on that. They know I don't condone that, but I still love them more than the same. So I have them. So I'm not talking or disrespecting. I definitely had disrespect anyone that in a relationship with the same sex. Um, y'all, can y'all see my thing still spinning? Anybody say anything else in the chat? I'm sure.
Yeah,
Anybody on the panel?
Kayla asked for the link. I don't know if you
Look at you. Yeah,
look at the link.
Can one of y'all put the link in there? And here is why he's putting the link in there. Here is a picture of a woman and a man right here. Man and woman. Is father, mother, and child. I just thought that was dope drawing. So father, mother, and child. These are my references here. Right here, we always have to put the references out there. And again, I have no problem with anyone going through and scrutinizing my sources, my references. I have no problem with that. And if I am in any error, that's why I always put a disclaimer out there. I always have to put a disclaimer out there. And again, if I am in error on anything, I have no problem with coming back and say I was in error and changing the information. But again, do it in a humbling way. Don't come at me crazy, because if you come at me crazy, I'm gonna come at you crazy. But critiquing it only makes us better. But a lot of people don't like critique. So once you say something, they get on a defense mode. They start to attack, and I see that a lot in the so-called conscious community. No one hates critique. A lot of people think they are above critique, and I understand why they do that, and that is because they are making money, so they do not want to seem wrong, um, seem wrong when someone is critiquing their information, venting through their sources if they give any sources. So, so anybody
Yeah,
put the
it
link?
ain't gonna let me put the link in the chat. I just tried to
Okay.
though.
All right, hold on, y'all. Let me give me a second. I'll put the link in the chat. Let me go back to everybody in here. Okay. Finna get you in here, Sister Kayla. Wait a minute. What is this? Okay. Let me go to Facebook. I mean YouTube. Well, that's loading up our damn, this show taking forever. Let me copy the link. All right, let me put it in now. Let me go to the channel. Give me just a second. Let me okay, I'm still live. I see it right here.
Hey, Daddy.
What's up, son?
Tell you my oatmeal pie.
Yeah. Oh, you stay home.
I told you I'm wrong. I need anything. Can't reach it. You know?
Hold on, let me chat. Copy the string link. I'm finna put it in there as soon as this. For some reason now my darn internet is go ahead too. I know that you want John, so go ahead. Get over it, Bryce.
But why did you say that you're not going to tell me I'm short? I ain't sure.
I got it. It's in the link. I mean, it's in the chat. Anybody wanted, if they want to join the panel, the link, and I put it in there twice. I put it in there one more time. So, Sister Kylie, the link is in the chat. Anybody else that want to join the panel, you're more than welcome to join. The panel. You know, I would like to hear somebody else's perspective as well. I was on the phone, so I didn't hear the question. Oh, okay. There. Anybody else in the chat? We can cover mirrors. Anybody else in the chat had any questions, y'all? I'm trying to scroll back through now.
That's the YouTube link, Kofi.
Hold on. Okay, so which one I supposed to put in there then? I put copy stream link in there. That's what one I supposed to put in there, right?
You can download the code on it before night.
Which one I supposed to put in there?
Any laptop.
The Zoom link.
And I don't know how to do that then. I thought copying the stream link was the one that you put in there. Hold on, let me see something. Invite. All right, yeah. Here you go. I'm sorry, y'all. I think this is it. If it ain't, it's gonna be the other one. Get them forward, Bryson. Stop playing them. Get them forward. I don't know what I'm doing, man. Hold on, y'all. Where's Sean go, man? Yeah, that it won't let me put all that up in that Sutek. That's what I was trying to see. Hold on. That won't even let me. Okay, let me delete all this. Hold on, y'all. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to sending these links. I know I sent a link out before I started the show, but putting this in here like this, it's not. I'm gonna make you. You know what you do. You know what you're doing, Sutek. If I make you
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me get Imikid in here too. All right, I got Sutek and Imikid in here. Not Sutek, but Sutek and Rod. Let me make you a thing too. Where you at? All right, hold on. Let me see. Sutek. All right. More. Make you the co-host now, Sutek. Go ahead. Sutek gonna put it in there, y'all. I don't know what I'm doing. Peace, Satep and Rod. Peace, brother. I mean, peace, Satep and Rod. Peace, send that Imikid.
Peace, greetings. Yes, I'm just listening in.
What's up, Kofi?
What's happening, man? What's happening? Imikid, what's your perspective on that, Imikid?
I just I kind of listened in and out between some of the things that you were saying, so you might have to be specific.
Well, basically, I just proposed the question, and the question was, can you say you African or be African or be recognized by any majority of the ethnic groups if you like the same sex? So I showed a bunch of slides, different ethnic groups, pregnancies, the taboos, the procedures, also each one of those groups stipulating that procreating is the highest value and the most important priority in their culture is to bring forth life. And it's just repeated through their procreating. And then when and I didn't have them in there, but I touched on this presentations back when I did the birthing, not the birthing, but the marriage is the most important right, and the rites of passage is where I stipulated in order to be, you talk about marriage, you have to talk about procreation. When you talk about procreation, you talk about marriage. And even with the rites of passages, the different, after the adult right comes the marriage right. And the marriage right comes birth. And they specify and bringing forth life for procreating because there are strength in numbers. It strengthens their community. It also ties and it bonds through marriage and children. It ties other families together. So I just showed a bunch of stuff and went back and just asked the question again because again, same sex is anti-life. Two people the same sex cannot reproduce and bring forth life. And most African cultures, there are over 3,000 in some ethnic groups. And majority of those groups, there are a few. I named a few that have sex or may have sex without being married or bringing a child. And or what will happen if you have children out of wedlock. But their main focus is procreating, is life, 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 life. So through the adult right, if you go and look at a lot of these adult rights, when you look at what they are learning when they are in the forest, when they are in the forest for whatever particular amount of time. Some may be in there a week, some may be in there a month, some may be in there. Some do. When you look at the people and the Bundo people, you look at them, those women rights of pay, you look at them, they in their whole year. Because there's certain things they have to learn, because they have to learn about herbs, because they become physicians where they know different herbs could do certain things, certain things that they can tip up for wounds, etc. and etc. But they are learning the role of a woman as well as the man is learning the role of a man. And they are learning that a man is supposed to be with a woman is supposed to be a man, because after the adult right comes the marriage right. So two men, so they are teaching that not two men supposed to be married, but a man and a woman. Because once a man and a woman have intercourse, they can regenerate themselves, they can reproduce and bring forth life, which will be beneficial and helpful to the family, to the clan, to the tribe, to the society, to the community, and tie and bond other different families together. Or two families that may have been feuding, it may stop the feud, it may stop the fighting and tie those families together. So marriage and procreation are the same, because again, you cannot talk about procreation without talking about marriage. You can't talk about marriage without procreation.
I agree, and especially when you look at historical African cultures. I mean, when you think about it, your value is also measured according to your progenies, whether it will be for the man or for the woman. So for the woman, you pretty much, if you can't procreate or have children, then your value goes down. And to a sense where in different other cultures, you probably have to find another wife for your husband to be able to procreate with. so that you can have, you can have children of quote unquote your own, so at the end of the day, yeah, so that actually comes, when it comes to that, procreation is at the center of it, not just in continuation, but also as part of what gives somebody value within the community as well. So if it's not, if you find yourself in activities that does not enhance that I don't think it will be easier to find a place within the community in that sense. It will be already tough. But I've read a few articles where people have discussed about finding homosexuality in different African cultures, but I haven't delved deep into it to see their arguments about it, to have an opinion or anything like that.
Yeah. Anybody else on the panel? I'm waiting to Sister Kayla get in here, and anybody else that wants to join the panel. Again, you're more than welcome to join the panel. Hold on, let me I'm trying to stop sharing. All right, so I can see what's going on. Appreciate that, us in that. I don't know why my darn thing just stopped a while ago. Well, while we're waiting on Kayla and anybody else, man, Kofi Piesie, do Afro-Americans reserve the right to modify the culture to reflect our status and members of the culture, which are extremely influenced by not the dominant participant or the creator? Let me read that. Do Afro-Americans reserve the right to modify? Yes, yes, we have to modify the culture. We have to modify it because a lot of things that they did over there, we not privy to over here. And then a lot of things that they did practicing are way outdated, and we know we don't need that over here. So yes, we have to. I don't see a problem with modifying the culture to benefit us. And again, a lot of things that I see we have to get rid of, we have to throw away, we have to throw away. I don't agree with it, and I done said this a lot of times. Again, I give you the good, I give you the bad. I give you the good, I give you the bad. I tell you what I agree with and what I don't agree with. Let me get hold on, let me get Chavis in here, King Sosa in here. Hold on, let me see.
Peace.
What's up, brother Chavis? How you doing?
Chilling, listening in, man.
Yeah. Queen Cheetah, she's in here. Okay, hold on. Let me get Queen Cheetah in here. She may be already. That's Kate. Okay, that's who Queen. I ain't know who Queen. I just started to see Queen Cheetah. I didn't know. I thought this was a new sister.
Yeah, stuff on her little Facebook page with the cheetah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think Sosa on here, man. But go ahead, Sister Kayla, Queen Cheetah.
Hey y'all, peace to the panel, peace to the chat. It's always such a pleasure and an honor to kick it with y'all. So thank you. So I'm gonna try to be short because I'm supposed to be working.
Okay.
So what I was trying to say is, I think that if we go in according to what you just presented and we go in according to how they was living back then obviously no, they wouldn't be accepted, which I don't agree with that at all, regardless of what day and age you're living in. So I say, yes, you can be African because my definition of being an African is being race first. So regardless of whatever your sexual preference is, if you are race first and putting in that righteous work for the uplifting of your people and the betterment of your people, then yes, you can be African. So
can I ask you something?
As far as when we define what does it really mean for you to be African? So again, if we going based off of your presentation and how they used to live back then, as far as their cultural and traditions, then obviously not. But when we gotta be more realistic in this day and age, because then to me, my question is, because that would be the same thing to say to those who have made up in their mind that they don't want children. They know that they don't like kids like that, or that they don't want to be parents, and have made up their mind that they don't want kids. I know a couple of women who know, like, for sure, they don't want children. So for those women who don't want children, does that mean that they're not African because they don't want children? So
I mean,
pose
go ahead.
that question as far as if they're dating the same sex, because obviously, yes, we know we need a man and a woman to procreate. We know that. But in today's day and age, when we look at it, it's a lot of people out there that's gay. And I also see the other side of it as far as when it comes to Black, I think, and forgive me just for saying this or saying bias, but I think it's more of a detriment for our Black men to be gay as opposed to our Black women being gay. And I only say that because the rate of our Black men are already scarce as it is. You have to figure they either dead or in jail. So we got to count those two categories out. That's a big chunk of our men missing. And then, you know, they're married or they're gay, or married to a woman and gay on the down low. So I can see how that is a detriment to us, because then obviously that's now forcing our women to go outside of the race even more, because you have to figure the ratio of women to men is like 2 women to 1 man. So you got to figure the odds is already against us as Black women. So then if we got more Black men ending up dead or in jail or committing suicide or being gay, where does that leave the Black woman to procreate, obviously, with the Black man to, you know, continue the Black family and the Black race? So I get that part of it as well. But to say that they're not African because they choose to sleep with the same race is not fair, because especially if they are race first. Again, like I said earlier in the chat, give me a gay person that's race first any day over a coon person that's a detriment to our people that ain't doing nothing for the betterment of our race. So when we pose this question, I think it's a real touchy topic, because again, I do say that they can't be African on my definition of it, because I don't agree with how they was doing it back then. I don't think that you should shun them or look upon them differently because they choose to sleep with the same race.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Why?
Not?
I mean, who are we to judge anybody? Why should we look at them any differently because of who they choose to sleep with? That's their personal business. Now,
Right.
if it's something that because yes, if they choosing to be gay, that's their business. Because
Correct.
yes, I get where you're going with it. Then they stop in the race and the continuing of the race, because obviously they can't procreate if they're gonna date the same sex. But then
So dig this real quick.
People that choose to not have children, does that make them not African if they choose that they don't want kids? Because some people know that they just don't want children, and that should be okay. It should be nothing wrong with that, because
it is. There's a whole lot wrong with people who don't want to have children.
No, because if they know, because maybe they know within themselves that they wouldn't be good at being a parent, and that
existence stops when that happens. That's the point. Existence stops.
I don't think you're getting her point, Senshan. What she's trying to say, and the question is, what is it to be African? Is it who you sleep with? Is it what you eat? Is it how you dress? So what she's trying to say is that that is not what defines if the person is African. You not having children is not what defines what being African is. So that because the question is, even if we don't find records of homosexuality in Africa, it's not, just because we don't know, or just because it was not allowed does not mean that it might not have happened either. We don't know. But
well,
the point,
yeah, well, we kind of know what happened because of the way some of these moral standards and codes were written and how they looked at things, you know, from different cultures. So we know that they forbidded the behavior from the perspective that they had these different, you know, for instance, the fertility dolls and all these different tribes. They're, you know, they all existed. So we know we see the fertility dolls there for a reason. So we know the procreation was prevalent to the existence of our people. But
correct.
I get what she's saying. I get what she's saying. But my point, why I was pressing it was because we have to look at, okay, well, this Africanness is really an idea, right? So but we do have to go back and look at the facts. So what are the facts? It is a fact that homosexuality does stop procreation. That's a fact, and that's an actual dangerous fact, because then our existence stops. That
So let me
lineage
ask you this.
stops. But hold on,
For those
real quick,
people
and then I'm
that
gonna be
don't
quiet.
want children, does that make them not African?
No, but hold on, let me finish. Then you have, to my point here is that you have the people who we think are race first people, and then all of a sudden their sexuality becomes more important because they would rather go to a gay pride convention than stand and fight against the oppression that we face on a day-to-day basis. It's more people today that would rather go and to the Rainbow Convention in Atlanta than join arms and actually deal with social injustices that we have as a community. That's where my problem lies the most, is because there is more of them than it is those who are willing to set aside their sexual preference to actually do the work. But to answer, does it make you more African or not? That doesn't take your lineage away from you. Your sexuality doesn't take your lineage away from you. But when you compare it to the traditions and customs of a people back on the continent that we descend from, and you go around that continent, then it's not culturally or traditionally the thing to do.
Compatible.
Yeah, compatible.
yeah,
So
but
When
just
you,
you have to be careful because and when I was stating, I was saying with you know, with historical African cultures, because even on the continent now, and is just, we know that you know, we do fight gay people. Countries are actually legalizing all that. So these are things that are happening, and even in the historical perspective, when you say it was forbidden, you have to also remember that you only forbid something that is somehow taking place already, you know. But but I also understand what you're trying to say about priorities, where people set their priorities. But I think the sister was mostly talking about, you know, about what is you know, on the point which was the topic is, can you be African if you're in a same-sex relationship? And then that would, you know, ask the question, make us ask question, then what is it to be African in that sense?
because what I'm saying is, it's like if I say I'm a doctor, right? A doctor practice medicine. So practice. This is something that he's doing. He's practicing. Just like if we say we are part of, a lot of us are doing DNA tests. So a lot of us is finding out we're coming from West Africa, we're coming from Central Africa. Majority of us is coming from West Africa. There was a small number in Central Africa. So and then we find out and we find out, okay, we come from West Africa. We find out we come from the Akan tribe, or we come from the U tribe, or we come from the Yoruba tribe, or we come from the Chui tribe, whatever these tribes are, right? So now we know what we are. So now we want to start practicing what our people did. So now we're starting to be practitioners of the culture. So the culture says this, that, and the third. So now we're starting to implement that into our life, because we say now we are demonstrating who we say we are, because we are practicing these things. So that's I made it in that thing, because when we always saying we these people, but we're not actually, I don't, just because I say I'm something, if you don't see me actually doing it, then you will say I'm not, I can tell you I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer all day. But till you actually see me practicing these things, you know what I'm saying? Then you will start to believe, okay, I am who I say I am, because you see I am practicing in this. I'm putting these things into practice. And then, so that's why I made the statement, because if we're going to say who we are, we say we are, we have to put these things into practice. And not only that, we have to stop making it. Again, I'm not attacking no one. I done said this plenty of times. I have people in my family I'm close to that I love the same, but it is anti-life. And according to a lot of these traditions, there are over 3,000 and some ethnic groups there, but majority of those groups are life first. And if I say I'm a part of this group, and these group practices is that this is the highest priority, this is the most highest value, is to get married and reproduce, you know, they is life. And then if and you are saying no, like Queen Cheetah, you saying those that may not want to have children. Okay, if you don't want to have children, why still run to the same sex? You can still be in a relationship with a man, which is natural. Be in a relationship with a man and just say you don't want to have sex. There are all types of precautions that you can take.
But that's what I'm saying. What would be the difference from a person being gay to a person saying that they don't want to have children? Because you're saying that that's the highest priority among the Black family. So I get that. But we have, I mean, what is better? Would it be better for a person to acknowledge that they don't want children and understand that they wouldn't be good and don't want to mess up a kid's life or add to society in a negative way? Or do you want somebody, whether or not knowingly or unknowingly, know that they're going to be fucked up and have a kid and then add to society in a negative way? What would be better?
I think it is a very selfish act to not want to procreate.
That's not selfish.
I think yes, it is. Hold on. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. It is the same thing with a person who commits suicide. It's the same thing as a person who commits suicide.
No,
no, hold on. Just listen to me. You have a parent who had 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 a parent. There's a pattern here. It's called evolving and reproducing. At the point that you decide to take your life, you just stopped lineage in that line. When you decide to say, I don't want any kids, you just stopped lineage in that line. Now I get it. Some women just can't afford the right to procreate due to health issues and other things. That is understandable to me. I get that. And I feel for them, because I know those are the type of parents, people that want to parent and want to foster children and to raise a child collectively and produce a good person and a good lineage in this world. But my whole thing goes back to the reason that I'm saying it's suicide is because it is stopping me from existing from here on out. And I'm saying that I'm speaking for myself here. I'm saying it's a selfish act because, okay, I get it. You don't want to have kids because you're a messed up person and life just ain't been grand for you. But what if life began to be grand for you and things changed? Would you then perceive or think about to have a child? You see what I'm saying? But just completely shutting down the fact that you just don't want a child, I just think is an irrational.
What if they mentally can't handle a kid? Because not everybody can mentally have the capacity to handle a child.
How do they know that? How do you know that?
They be fucked up already mentally, where they know, you know what? I'm not in the mental state to where I can have a kid. So they that that's not good for them. So who as us are we to determine whether or not a person's selfishness as far as on whether or not they want a kid, or even to go the suicide route, because we don't know how they are thinking mentally. we don't know for those people that did commit suicide on whether or not they got the support that they were looking for or needed, to where that they felt that as though life is better without them. They probably felt as though that they don't have support. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, maybe who knows what they were going through mentally. But who are we as any other person outside of that person to determine for them on whether or not that's selfish? That because at the end of the day, if they made that decision to not have children or to be gay, that is their choice as a human being to make that decision.
Thank you for saying that. Now,
Can I say something, man?
Hold on real quick. Before we...
Let me finish. And if they make that choice, to me, because if we gonna go as far as defining whether or not they African, yes, because if they are, as long as they are not a detriment to us and they are putting in the righteous work as far as uplifting us as a race, I don't care whether or not they choose to sleep with the same person or if whether or not they decide they want to have children and procreate. That is their business and their decision.
Okay. Now, the reason that you feel like that is because you're birthed in a society that deems it acceptable. See, on a continent, there's a different standard. They don't adhere to American standards. They're not having this shit pushed on them. We're
you
not
people in Africa
hold on. They're not having homosexual books printed and forced on them. They're not having cartoons and toys made or created to infuse these things into that. They're not having this decision of where a child at 12 or 13 years old can say, I no longer want to identify as a boy, I rather identify as a child. But then when it comes to having your breast reduced, you gotta have permission. You don't have a permission. You don't need your parents' permission to change your sexuality preference, but then you need your parents' permission just to get a breast reduction or something along those lines. So what I'm saying is, on the continent, because that's ultimately what we're speaking of. On the continent, they are not adhering to a society that is infusing these beliefs and perspectives on people. They already got their code. They live by their code. They practice their code. They continue their code. Now, you do have instances where these people do exist, and they society forbids that in those cultures and traditions. You get all of that. But I'm not going to say it makes them less African. But if we're arguing on the fact of procreation, which is the ultimate argument that the continent makes for itself, then I'm saying that doesn't make you less African. That just makes your perspective and your global outlook on life less African, because you're somewhere else. So these Europeans have infused, I'm saying here when I say Europeans, I'm saying these Europeans have infused a different mold or culture on us intentionally, because they want us to be less aggressive. They don't want us to be unified in anything. And then when we do get unified in something, now it's your sexual preference over our unification to move things forward. All the other stuff is fluff.
I think what
earlier when she said that if it was forbidden, why is something forbidden in the first place? Because the act was being done. So to say that was not happening over there, clearly it was happening over there for them to have making it to be forbidden. So
yeah, they would kill you. They would kill you.
Look at it.
The end of your life.
But listen, can I just
regardless of whether or not it's the white people making us quote unquote feel like this or think like this, at the end of the day, like I said, regardless if it goes against biology, and we know that we need men and women to procreate, we know this, everyone knows that, but let them make that decision. That is their decision as a person. Who are we to be upset? that they
That's
don't want to
selfish.
have.
That's selfish. That's selfish.
The same person. Because
Y'all
like
are
I
missed of an argument though instead of a
just work and
instead of
put
a
in that work,
discussion.
you can't work them for it. Period.
Yeah. I think just
Y'all caught up in an argument. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
Go ahead.
and it's just you have to be specific with certain statements that you make, like Sean, when you say they on the continent are not. I think what you're trying to say is they were, because modern African culture is completely different with historical African cultures, because like somebody was stating on a chart, cultures are supposed to evolve with the changing times, because all those different rules and guidelines and customs are actually formed to kind of like help with the survival of that particular time. So and so it becomes a little bit problematic when you say that they are not, when it's actually factual that they are on the continent. And it's not just certain adjustments that they make, even if you take away the whole homosexuality out of it. The cultures adjust even with certain things like women's circumcision. Things change. Cultures are supposed to change to adjust to the different to the changes in survivals and modernization and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just about Europeans or homosexuality. And what the sister was saying, because if you look at it in isolation, as in why was procreation a priority during those times, you also have to understand what the systems that were formed as a whole that allowed for that to be able to happen easily, as opposed to now where we don't have that support, whether you're on the continent or whether you're abroad. You don't have that community support unit that helps every single individual with whether they have mental issues, they have financial issues. So people have to adjust with their own personal, like she said, if somebody feels that they're not mentally capable of having children and raising children in that sense, then they cannot do that at this time. And so it would be criminal actually to let somebody have a child, because that's what was done in the past when that support system is not there. So when you're using these cultures, you have to use them as a whole in context. And when something breaks, then adjustments have to be made. The problem is that there are no those adjustments, but we want to take those systems as wholesale, all of them, and just bring them and then make them work. It will not work, because 2020 is not 1800 somewhere in Africa. It doesn't even work for the Africans on the continent. I know that. So we even in our like Luo, we keep adjusting certain things. Like I'll give you an example. In our culture, if I go back to my village, or let's say if I go back to my village, I'm a married woman. We are not supposed to be spending, the night in that particular village. Or even if my parents were to visit me, they're not supposed to be spending the night in the same building, or even in the same household. But what happens is, because of modernization, you're going through, like, if we have people visiting us in the city, we have to make those adjustments. Like they'll have to stay with us, because you can't afford to rent a hotel, because you're trying to keep up with your traditions. So in that sense, we've had to sit down and say we have to make adjustments. And I think that's what the fundamental of what the sister was trying to say, that I think kind of got missed, that she understands, the what you're saying about those traditions, but with the situation currently, some of those cannot. It's just impossible to happen, and it would just be unfair to even say that is selfish, because I think it's more selfish to bring a child when you know you're not capable of raising that child properly. So it is actually very unselfish to I think that's what she was trying to say, but she can try let me know if I misunderstood.
Can I say?
Remember community though.
Yes.
Can I make a quick comment though before y'all go off again? Because when I first jumped on, right, I was like, you know what, they're at a calm space. So, because I knew this was a touchy subject, and I knew eventually it was going to catapult to someplace else, you know. And too, like I want to say, man, we got to have a real conversation about subjectivity and objectivity. You know what I'm saying? But the underlying, and I love neurobiology, man, and neuroscience, right? And the underlining thing of what y'all talking about, and y'all kind of don't even realize it, is choice. Like, I think a lot of people are under the impression that it is a choice. And I think if you looked at it other than it, maybe it's not a choice, then maybe you would see it different when you just understand just how the mind works. And it's obvious that some people should not have kids. I mean, whether you can be schizophrenic, you can have full-blown OCD. There's all situations where bringing a child in the world, it ain't the thing to do for that particular person. So I think the short answer to it is, yes, you can still be African and in the same sex relationship, because that being African does not rely on sexuality.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand what you saying. I understand what she's saying. I mean, but it's based. If that's why I did the presentation, and it's based on community. I understand right here. The African American family is broke, and our whole perspective now is individuality. It's about me. It's about me. It's about me, and it's about me and no one else. But back on the continent, it's about it's a communion, it's a community. So it was just like when you just like if you look at marriage, you know what I'm saying? Marriage, like I said, you talk about marriage, you got to talk about procreation. Bringing kids or bringing another life into another family will be beneficial for that family or for that community. I.e. means that if there are more people in that family, then the more the family can accomplish. You see what I'm saying? And just to give you an example is if it was, because if you go back and you look at a lot of the African family, let's look at the family structures. You'll have the mother, the father, you may have the sister, you may have the brother, you may have the brother husband, the brother wife, and the what's the name? They all in one community by themselves. So if my son, so now I have 2 sons, I have 2 daughters, I have 3 grandchildren, or 6 grandchildren. That is beneficial for us as a whole, because now we have more people where we can spread out and we can do certain things. I can have a son, he can go over here, he can till the land. I have another son that can come here. He may specialize in growing certain types of food. After he till the land, he can, what's name? I got a daughter that I can send to school for here. Now she's a nurse or whatever, so she can do certain things in the what's name. So it was to strengthen the family. It wasn't one like today. If a person have a family, a girl have a family today, I mean a daughter today, we know most of the time she's going to raise the child by herself, because there's no man in the household, and particularly she doesn't deal with, or the family doesn't deal with her, or she don't deal with the family, so it's not a family union. So family unit. So I see that, okay, it's her choice. Okay, if I don't want to have kids, I want, because she don't have that support system. I understand exactly what she is saying. But again, when we talk about the continent, there are certain codes and conducts. Again, I'm talking about putting things into practice. We say we something that we are not. So if I say I'm something, going back to a doctor, you're not going to believe I am who I say I am unless you see I put those things into practice. And again, bringing forth life was very beneficial to the community. It was very beneficial to the tribe. It was very beneficial to the clan. So I understand what she's saying when we're looking at it from the perspective of the African American, because most of the Black women in the household are raising kids without their own. And again, if we keep giving excuses about this and that, just say if everybody becomes homosexual, everybody likes the opposite sex, then life is going to cease to exist. Life is going to cease to exist. Again, I'm not, when I did this presentation.
In extremes, though, Kofi. He's speaking in extremes.
What you mean I'm speaking in extremes?
if everybody was to, that's not
right.
that's
I'm
not,
I'm
that's not
okay.
right.
Yes,
But
yes.
let me ask you
What
a
I'm
question.
saying is right. Okay,
Let me ask you a
okay.
question.
But go
Let me
ahead.
ask you a question. Do you think it's evolving to come from a society where, let's say, if somebody was homosexual, you kill them, and now
No.
you evolve to where you don't do that?
Right. Okay,
Do
that's
you
what I'm
think that's
saying.
evolving?
Everybody coming in at the tail end of the presentation. Nobody looked at the
No, no.
presentation or paid attention to the
No,
presentation or
no.
even what I
I'm just
said.
asking. I'm just saying that just for perspective, because see, like, even though all the things you want to implement, they're still not going to stop somebody from being gay.
Oh, I'm
Because
not. This presentation wasn't for that. It wasn't.
America,
right.
and we have to put this in context. In
Wow. Right.
America, these things are acceptable. You have the choice. You are
See, that's why I
pro-choice.
call it, because it's based on what Sean is saying. Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
It's
Go ahead.
in America. It is pro-choice, and as long as homosexuality is being sold to people, it will remain okay and it's deemed acceptable in America. But when you
I got a
go
question.
back,
I got
go
a
ahead.
question. Like, if somebody, a homosexual person of African descent, was listening right now, what would you think? What would be the perfect solution for them and you to be able to coexist?
Good question.
For me and them to
Say that again.
coexist,
I like Kofi and Sean. Go ahead.
work would have to be done. No, I heard what he said. I'm first of all, what the problem that I have with a lot of the people who make the choice to do what they do is that they make the choice. They make the choice to do what they do, and then that choice becomes the priority. It becomes I'm doing this and I'm focused on this. Then my people are second. So I am pro this right now, and I'll deal with that later. Okay, let me give you an example, right? So there was two brothers actually. And notice I'm saying I'm calling them brothers. There was two brothers in Atlanta, right? They were homosexual partners, right? They were also trying to fight against some things in the community that was unjust, right? So okay, you like, cool, I'm with that. That's the move, right? Then all of a sudden, what they were fighting for got put to the back burner because then they wanted to defend some homosexuals in another area that had something that was going on, or something like that they were trying to publicize. So their fight for the injustice of people in that community became second until it was non-avoiding anymore. So what happened to that fight? Like, you were in this fight, and then you said, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna go fight this fight.
So basically,
Because
I feel like your thing is like they need to pick a team. That's like
Can I
your
ask a question?
solution.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Hey, Kofi, I didn't check out the video, so I'm totally blind here. But I just want to ask a question. I have a couple of questions, but I'm not gonna hog the mic. Just ask one or two. This to Sean and Kofi. What if? Because I didn't hear anybody mention this. What if a person is beyond childbearing age and they have a child and then decide to act on a relationship with the same sex? What does that change?
I got an auntie like that, really, like right now.
They already had children. They had let's say a person
Jay-Z's mama. Jay-Z's mama is a good example. Would you?
Okay, well,
Jay-Z.
I'm just giving them an example because I'm hearing the bulk of it being either procreation, the purpose of keeping the lineage going, and then I'm hearing an issue of loyalty to a cause. So on the lineage side, suppose two people, or suppose a person does already have child, they have children, two or
they
one,
serve the
two,
purpose.
and then they decide to become a homosexual, male or female. what would your answer be to the topic question? Can that person still be African in that context, in that sense? Are they okay with you?
I'll go. Okay.
I said they
Again,
serve their purpose.
yeah, I do too. But listen. Okay, that's why. Okay, I know you said you came in the tail end of the discussion. Then I just looked at somebody else. I just invited them to the panel because you had to look at the presentation to see. This is why I did the presentation. Okay, you said if a person has a child and then later on dates the opposite sex, is she still considered an African? That's what you said. Say what was
Yeah, basically whatever. Yeah, how you're.
Okay, it's according to what ethnic group you belong to. And again, in most ethnic groups, majority of all of them, over the 3,000 and some ethnic groups, you look at their rites of passage, right? You look at their rites of passage. This is why I did a presentation on marriage is the most important, right? And then I did a rites of passage presentation. Okay, in most of the cultures, you give an example. Let's give an example. We'll give let's just get the Bamana tradition. Okay, we deal with this group in Mali. And this group in Mali, I say I am a part of the Bamana tribe that lives in Mali. And their culture is X, Y, and Z. And I went through the same teaching. We're talking about levels of knowledge, the levels of information, rites of passage. And through the rites of passage and through their culture states that once I am birthed, I receive my name through the birthing processes and the rites of passage. Then I move on to become an adult. Now I'm no longer recognized as a child to my whole community. I am adult because I went through a level of knowledge by learning certain things, and I went through certain things through my rites of passage. So now the Bamana people are recognizing me as an adult. So now I am an adult Bamana. Now, after that, I have to go through the next step. I have to become married. This is according to their traditions. I have to be married. So when I talk about marriage, you're talking about creation. So creation and marriage again goes hand in hand. So now I go through this another step. I get married, meaning when I'm an adult, I am being taught by my community that the role of a man is X, Y, and Z, and he has to be with a female. So you have to be with a female to procreate, to go to the next step of which is marriage.
A lot of us wouldn't even be considered men, though, using their standard of what's a man. And like you say, through the rites of passage that they go through.
Right.
A lot of us over here wouldn't even be considered men over there.
Yeah, you're right.
But so what was the answer though, Kofi?
You were getting to it.
Because I don't start with I was trying to go somewhere, but I don't forgot now. I don't forgot. But anyway, what I'm saying is, let me finish. And I'm talking about certain groups because I'm saying we are just, you said the same thing, Saber. We always are putting our experiences or today's society is on another culture. And what I'm saying to you is, she wouldn't be if she was a part of the Bamana tribe. No, she wouldn't. She would not be, and I should have said, and that's why I said, or at the end of not the presentation, but the thing, would you be accepted by other ethnic groups? So if I wanted to be, and let's just throw the word African out, because we let's throw the word African out, and just that's why I use the Bamana people. Even in the presentation, I gave you numerous of tribes' names, but just with the Bamana people, no, she wouldn't be considered a Bamana because she got married, she had a child, then she got divorced, and then she became a homosexual. She probably would be recognized as a Bamana, and then afterwards she probably would not be recognized as a Bamana because now she is provided. Now she's not married. She did what she had to do. She got married. She had a child. This is according to their tradition. This is what they have to do. Now she fulfilled that, and now she says she's too old to bear a child, or she just decide, hey, I don't want to have any more children. Hey, I don't even want to be married anymore. Hey, I'm feeling something about this woman down the street or across the street or in another village. Now she gets a divorce, and then she goes and date the opposite sex. She probably wouldn't be recognized as a bummer. I don't know what the particulars what she would have to do. I don't know what they exile her from the community. I don't know what she would not become she would not be recognized as an elder if she already elder, or she would not become an ancestor now. That may, I don't know what the stipulations of that would be, but she probably would not be recognized as a Bamana. Let's just throw African out. That's why at the end I said ethnic groups. No, she probably wouldn't. That's my answer. No, she probably wouldn't.
All right, so let me answer
Wait.
let me answer your question, Sabu, about
All right.
what you said. So what I'm going to say is the fact that, and I'm gonna argue this from a cultural perspective with numerous West African tribes. All right, so in almost every West African tribe, they all have fertility dolls. They have festivals dedicated to procreation, dealing with motherhood. You have in the Yoruba, you have the Galete festival. You have these different functions that pay tribute and homage to motherhood. And yes, I'm not. What I'm saying, in that culture and in that tradition, it was frowned upon for women who could not conceive. I tell the story on our channel, on this same channel, about a woman who originally could not conceive a child, and over time she was frowned upon because she could not ultimately be become what she needed to become in that society, because she was still looked at as a child because she could not bear children. Then one day, all of a sudden, she was able to bear children later in her life. So she would ultimately be sprang up. Now these stories and this way of life for the women exists today. This hasn't gone anywhere. Even facing colonialism, they still adhere to these things. Now, is it right? I'm not arguing that, because we're in America, and I'm not going to put an Americanized lens on the culture and traditions in Africa, which I think is wrong. So I'm not going to do that. But what I am saying is that, the way that I'm looking at it, based on the evidence that I have about all these many tribes and their cultural perspective on this argument, it does not make them less African. One, what it does is they are frowned upon in that society because they have not bear children, because of whatever complications that may exist. However, they're not just disrespected or excommunicated. In some senses they are, but then in others there aren't. So then culturally, this is just that's their their worldview. So if I'm looking at that and I'm studying all these different tribes, and I'm looking all over the map, and I'm comparing all these, how others African countries and nations are looking at this, and analyzing it in that perspective, what I also get is that there is small pockets of this homosexuality activity taking place in a very minute place on the continent. And that minute place is centralized because it's forbidden basically pretty much everywhere else, but not saying that it's not going on. So I'm going to say, to the mother who bare the child and later changed, she served her purpose. But see, she served her purpose. Now, if she's here or there, it doesn't change it. She served her purpose because she bore a child. She continued her lineage. Now, what she did after the fact is just after the fact. But like I said, we're here in America. We have this choice. This choice is a strong choice. If you take choices away from people, they start protesting. We saw that at the vaccine debate. So here's where we are.
Okay, so yeah, all right, I'm clear. Because Kofi, you like answered it because you basically said that that she may be excommunicated and stuff, even if she fulfills her cultural obligations at first. So what you're saying, what sound like you're saying, as far as the example, because you say you covered many, but you gave the one example. So basically, in that particular culture, their cultural obligations is for life, and if they at any point in their life they abandon it, then they may possibly be excommunicated or not considered a member of that culture. Like whatever, forget the name you were saying. As far as Sean, you said it sounded like you were saying with the fertility dolls and things, that was I guess a different point, because my example was saying, what if a woman did have children, she fulfilled everything, but then let's say at 30 years old she already had 5 children and the whole 9, but now at 30 she wants to go down a different path and deal with the same sex. So you're saying that she fulfilled her duties, but it sounds like you're not clear on your position whether or not that's an issue or not. So I wasn't really clear with your answer. Really.
It's still I'm saying, because that's why I said depends on what lens I'm looking at things. Or if I'm looking at it from a cultural perspective and on the continent, then yes, I'm right with Kofi 1000%, because she could be excommunicated out the community because of the choices that she made, or it could end up in, they might not spare the excommunication and just knock you off. However, that's just how it goes. But I'm saying, if I'm over here and I'm looking at it from my perspective over here in America, and I'm saying, well, this, that, and the third, that's why I said what I said, because ultimately,
so real quick,
given the choice here.
So is it about, because like I said, I didn't see the presentation, but I didn't see the presentation, but so I'm trying not to make you revisit anything, and I didn't see that. But is it, I heard the conversation after, and I heard I think she left. No, Queen Cheetah had said, was asking about the procreation. So the logic of it now. So if a heterosexual person decides not to have children, if it's all about procreation, right? If a heterosexual person decides not to have a child, are they held to the same standard as a person who does have a child, but then later, after having children and fulfilling a cultural requirement, later wants to have a relationship with the same sex? Are they held to the same standards if it's about the procreation or the advancement of the lineages and things like that? So what would happen if a person who is not homosexual, but they decide not to have children, period? Are they held to the same standard of somebody who did have children, fulfilled that part of it, but then they have a same-sex relationship? What is that? What would that situation look like?
You did address that, Sean. You said they were selfish, right? That's selfish.
Yeah, Sean said that they were selfish. I think it was two different perspectives going on, because I think Kofi and his presentation was very clear. He went through the arguments that he brought was pretty much to showcase why historically that wasn't something that was favorable, and depending on what those people valued most, and that was procreation. And clearly back in the days, there weren't so many people either way. So now we're talking about overpopulation at the end of the day. So priorities do change and must change. But Kofi was focusing on something else, and that was not, it was just to showcase why that was not. And I think, and then he also brought a good point where he stayed focused on the cultures and what they would do. And like he said, now what they would do in case somebody didn't abide by that particular culture. And we see that a lot, because we have people who actually have to immigrate out of their countries for fears of their own life because of their sexual orientation or preferences. So that do happen, like Kofi did say. Now, on the other side, what Sean was talking about is completely different. That was about the self-image and or depend on what the sister brought up with about not procreating, if we have to take it that that's a priority of what would make somebody African, then like Sean said, that would be selfish. But I don't think they were the same. Him and Kofi were actually on arguing the same points.
Okay, I have a question now then. Is homosexuality increasing on the continent?
My argument was toward a comment. It wasn't toward the presentation, because I've already dealt with the presentation.
Yeah, we don't spiral past the presentation.
Yeah, that's what I'm. That's what I is.
My
presentation.
Let's just keep going though, because I still want to hear the bill though. I still want to hear the bill.
I got a question.
Is homosexual? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just real quick. To you all's knowledge, is homosexuality increasing on the continent of Africa?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So why just now? Y'all can come back to it because I don't want to hog that as a conversation, but I'll be interested in knowing you all's thoughts on why that is occurring.
That was going to be my question, similar to that, as well as to, because I don't know if y'all said it or not. I'm sorry, I was in and out. But if we gonna go back to his presentation and far as the cultures and customs of what they was doing and how it was forbidden, are you saying that we are applying those to today's day and age? Because yes, we practice African traditions and cultures, or at least trying to. So even then, it shouldn't have been that way as far as, disowning the woman or man, yada, yada. But if we're applying it to today's day and age, we're living in a day and age where it's not as taboo as it was then. And like he said, we can say that over in Africa, it is increasing as well. So then does that make them not African? Like, I mean, have we still, I don't know if y'all got to it yet, but what defines a person to be African? Like, again, I don't know if y'all answered it or not, because I was in and out, but hold on one second, honey. Where is,
That's me, she breaking up.
Can y'all hear me?
I just realized this is that's scary.
So if we are applying the customs of of back then to today, where we're living in today's day and age, how are we defining what makes them African, or what makes them selfish or not selfish as far as procreation? Because again, it's increasing over in Africa. So what about them that's living over there? Does that make them not African? Are they going to be shunned? Are they going to be put to death for being gay here today?
Hold on, y'all, before you go in. Before anybody else say something, hold on. I'm just trying to go back to what did I say? Okay. I said, so family, is it African, or will you be accepted in most of the 3,000 and something ethnic groups to like the same sex, which is non-procreation? Accepted in most of the 3,000 ethnic groups. Let's scratch, like I said a while ago, let's scratch African and deal with the ethnic groups. This presentation, I don't know, it done went way somewhere else. The presentation, and we can get back into the bill. The presentation was not about attacking homosexualities. You can go back and look at it. I said, made no slurs, no remarks about people in the side. I even said that I have family members that are close to me that I still love dearly and don't treat differently. So this presentation was to show that procreation was the highest value and one of the most priorities when it comes to African culture. And I didn't nothing to deal with attacking homosexuals. Nothing was saying there's no homosexual activity in Africa. I didn't say that at all. We have steered strictly off, and I made the point of marriage because I keep talking about when we talking about bringing forth life, we talk about procreation being the highest value, and most of those over 3,000 and something African groups, their rites of passage deal with marriage. So after it's steps that are being taken. Just like when you go to first grade, you know there are steps are being taken. You're not learning about algebra in the first grade. So there's the steps that are being taken. So once you get to the step of marriage, we know marriage involves creating, procreating, meaning that it's going to help the community and the family out by bringing forth life. So it was to highlight marriage. In order to procreate in most cultures, you had to be married. In order to procreate, it had to be a male and female in order to procreate. Once you procreate, it is going to strengthen the family, and it's going to bring families together that may have had rifts, you know what I'm saying, or may not like each other, but it brings them together, bonds them together, strengthen the family together. It was not to attack homosexuality, because I didn't attack anybody. I didn't, and now one of the 33 slides that I had said that homosexuality was not in Africa. That's why at the end of it, I said ethnic groups. Let's take away from African, it's something in ethnic groups. Will you be accepted by the 3,000 and something ethnic groups if you like the same sex? And no, you would not be accepted according to their culture and according to their tradition. That's why I showed you the Saluka tribe. That's why I showed you the Yoruba tribe. That's why I showed you the Lili tribe. That's why I showed you the Grusainka tribe. That's why I showed you the Kikuyu tribe. That's why I showed you the Gisumu tribe. I showed you numerous of tribes of those cultures and traditions that they practice, how it is a high value, and what happens when you have these children. It helps the family, it helps the community. There was no attack on homosexuality. There was not me
I
saying
don't
that
think
you
we
can't
accuse you of that, Kofi.
Huh?
We're not accused. I don't think nobody's accusing you of attacking.
But that's where the conversation is keep going.
Because because
No, it just
Sean
opened up
and
a
Chitty's
discussion.
conversation is spiral. When Kayla and Sean got into it, it just spiraled into different forms of thought, man. We were going, down that path.
Kofi,
right
can you
Yeah,
leave that
yeah.
up? Can you leave that up, Kofi? Can you leave that up?
It just brought up some coffee. I think everybody understood that and would agree. It's just that it just opened up, for a much broader dialogue with some questions that people had.
Okay, I got a question about the presentation now then, because I'm seeing this one. So, so you say, so basically the, pregnancy and birth was revered because, rebirth is the rebirth of ancestors and future generation, everything like that. So you asked the question, and we're going to skip the African part. So you asked the question, would you be accepted in most of the 3,000 and something ethnic groups to like the same sex, which is non-procreation? So, and your answer was that no, and you demonstrated several different groups to support that answer of no. So my question is, what I asked earlier, is that, do you see that as changing over time? Like, because I asked more broadly. Now I see that slide, I'm asking more specifically, but I was asking, is homosexuality increasing on the continent? But now I could be more specific to your question and say, do you see that changing? Like, your answer is no right now, what is, and it's true. But do you see that changing over time? Like do you see more and more people even over there in these tribes? Do you see some changes going on over time, in recent time, and in the future? Do you see that changing?
Yes.
And if so,
yes.
And why?
I mean, you see it. I mean, Western influence. On the presentation, I showed you where they didn't do they didn't celebrate the birth until afterwards. I showed you over here in America, when someone has a child, get ready to have a child, they have a baby shower. They didn't do those things in Africa, but now they do those things in Africa now. I even showed you how the woman was called a prostitute in such and such to certain ethnic groups, but and it was frowned upon. But I even said in the presentation I showed on one of the slides where I said with the infiltration of the adoption of Western culture into many African cultures, some of the beliefs are no longer widely practiced or hold true today. Most families will support their unmarried relatives. What's more, Africans are not beginning to celebrate their pregnancies before the birth of their babies by having baby showers. It is changing. I said that it is changing due to the influence of Western.
Oh, I'm hearing. I don't know what's going on. I'm hearing a lot of
Hey,
noise in the background.
That's Chavis Mike. Chavis, mute out. Chavis, mute out. You
can mute them, Kofi. You're gonna have to mute them. Somebody. Okay,
right,
there you go.
I got it.
Okay, so Kofi, that's excellent. That's excellent. So that answers the question. Like I said, I didn't see your presentation. So you already had in there that it is changing, and the change is coming by way of influence from Western culture, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now here's a separate question.
Hey, Mujo, before you move from right there, let me ask something before you go from right there, guys. There's a quick question because I'm confused right here. I just want to know, like, before, like, African cultures, they were not celebrating the birth of children, like the birth, like a mother's pregnancy about to give birth. Like,
No, showers. That over here, they did not. I mean,
no, I know showers, but they did have ceremonies to bring in, like,
after the child was born. After the child was born.
Only after, but not okay. All right.
After it was because they believed most of the and listen, I said most. The key word is most.
No, I'm just asking, Kofi, I'm just asking, bro, because I don't know. I'm just trying to. I'm completely ignorant. I'm not trying to.
Yes.
I just wanted to know.
Okay, I said most. I said most. Most of the groups believe if you celebrated before the infant was born, that the baby could be cursed when it was born, the baby could die early when it was born, which I stipulated and showed in the slide, or they could lose the baby. This is what different. I told you different. One of them was the Lily people that I showed. They believed in it, but it was not them. It was more. It was a lot of groups. I said most, not all. When I do presentations.
No, I got it, Kofi. I got it. I just wanted to know.
Kofi about to go in on you.
I know Kofi hot right now. I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know. Like, now you explaining like superstition.
We've been talking about it a whole lot, man, and people just not paying attention to all the presentations we've done on this subject, and it's kind of frustrating.
Right, it is.
When you rehashing these things that you already brought up.
No, but that was a valid question because it's odd. Especially from this over here, because
Western perspective.
But now,
that's how we viewing this whole argument from a Western perspective, and we understand that. We understand that people.
Oh, well, okay. I have another question though, and that sparked another question. But man, I want to ask my other one because that one sparked that actually sparked another question because and that's one shortest. Let me deal with that one. So this is the thing. If I'm living in the African culture. And I'm part of an African tribe, and it is embedded in my culture that procreation is one of the highest virtues of my culture. And why? Because it allows ancestors to be reborn, and it allows the continuation of future generations. So that's very, very important to me and my people. So I just wonder, and I'm not saying anybody may have an answer to this, but I just wonder that if that's such a high virtue in my culture, that how is it even possible for somebody to and to influence me to endanger that? So like Kofi, you just said that in my culture, I'm just giving a scenario. In my culture, I believe that celebrating a child's birth before it's born may detriment the successful birth of the child, or the child may be cursed and the whole nine. But yet in my culture, the successful birth is the highest virtue because it allows the ancestor to come back and it allows the generation of future generations. So how in the world could somebody else influence me to adopt a practice that's going to put that in danger? If that is indeed one of the highest virtues of my culture from the get-go. Now, I'm not saying anybody has an answer for that, but to me, that's amazing.
Okay,
That
but
kind
you're
of
saying
goes back to what,
so you saying that they
back to what Emicat said, Kofi. That kind of goes back to what Emicat said. Example.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of answered also a question that I was about to ask, but go ahead since that.
First of all, there's out of the 54 countries, 32 of them have anti-homosexual laws that existed when colonialism took place.
Sean went backwards.
So Temple, what are you saying?
Hold up, Sean. What were you answering? Because I wasn't even talking about homosexuality at all.
No, I'm saying the laws that exist around the cause of homosexuality.
No, I'm not. But I'm trying to leave that alone. That's why I asked what I asked. I'm not even talking about homosexuality at all no more. I'm talking about what Kofi just said. Because I didn't hear the presentation, so I got questions about Kofi's presentation now. So I'm going back because that's a good some good information. So I'm putting this question to the floor, that if I'm part of a culture that in my culture we strongly believe that procreation is one of our highest virtues, and it's because it allows our ancestors to be reborn, and it allows the continuation of future generations. Now that's very important to me and my people. So to me it seems weird that a culture that has that would even allow the influence of another practice that will put that in danger. And the example I gave is to celebrate a child's birth prior to it being born, if it is my belief that by doing that, I'm going to endanger the child. You see, but my culture is based on the procreation and successful birth. So to me, that's amazing. So it's like really weird that how that happens. So
I can tell you how that happens though.
Yeah, but we do that all the time. I mean, we be influenced all the time. I mean, let's just say, okay, culture. We'll just say health culture. Me and a bunch of people get together, and these people, we all agreeing on the same thing. We agreeing that health is wealth. So we come up with a dietary law in order for us to stay healthy and live longer. And we do this, and then we have somebody that comes in and tell us that, man, this hamburger is or entice us or do all types of things in order to convince a person to bite something that we may consider bad. And then I've been believing my whole life that health is wealth. I eat plants, I do whatever it was that we came up with. This is a whole culture because we agreed upon it. These groups of people agreed upon it. We came up with a dietary law. This is what we're going to put in our body. And if we put this in our body, we believe that we will live 100 years. But then I get influenced. I may not never knew nothing. I might have grew up, I might have never knew nothing about a hamburger. I might have never knew nothing about a beef patty. I never knew nothing about a Big Mac or whatever the case may be. So I get around certain people now. I'm outside of my community, or these group of people move into the community that we belong to. I never seen a beef patty before, and I'm smelling a beef patty, and the beef patty smells good to me. Or I smell a piece of chicken, and I ain't never smelled a piece of chicken or seen a piece of chicken before, and I smell it, and I say, that aroma smells good to me. And every time these people around, I'm smelling these different scents that I may have never smelled no more. And then and every time I'm eventually around these people, and I'm around these people a lot. And these people are eating these foods, and I'm smelling these aromas I never smelled before. And these people are enticing me. Man, it's good. It's good. Blase, this and that, man. If you eat this, or man, this fried chicken ain't gonna be too bad for you, man. Or this here might clog your arteries, but eat this piece of baked chicken. This baked chicken gonna be good for you. Or blase. And then I eventually, over time, because they keep enticing me and I keep smelling these aromas and around these people, and they're convincing me, and I don't know nothing because I don't really know too much about it. And then I bite a piece of chicken, and then I get hooked to the piece of chicken. I bite a beef patty. I get addicted to the beef patty. So now I'm no longer eating the plants or whatever the case it was that we came up with the diet was, because now I got encountered by something I never seen before, something I never smelled, and now it's around me all the time. And I have people that are always enticing me and trying to influence me and telling me it's not bad for me, but I still say, okay, we got this and that, but I never seen this. Maybe they didn't put this in here because they never encountered these types of food in order to say that this was bad or this wasn't bad or we could eat it long as it was prepared like this. So I tried, and now I'm being influenced. So now I try, and now I'm eating chicken. And but we do it all the time. We be influenced. I ain't cursed for 20 some years. I've been around I've been 20 some years. I've been with my fiance 4 years. I curse like a seller now. You know what I'm saying? Something I said I wouldn't do. I don't feel like that's right for me to curse, whether it's just me and another adult, or curse around kids or curse around another adult. I've been around it for so long, I begin to pick up those types of habits. So people can be around people and pick up those types of habits. I see those things happening all the time, Wujao. I see it happen all the time. People being influenced, or people having a high regard for something, and they put this at the top of the pedestal. And then over time, I see them, that thing that they have high regard for, they say they won't do, they get around certain things, and then they convinced now they are doing things that they say they wouldn't do, or things that they have high in regards for, and things that they may have low in regards for, but now they are doing that same thing by being encountered by certain things and being influenced by certain things.
Okay,
now
so
the question is, Kofi, when you have that, you have your tradition, which is B, and what you're being influenced by, which is A. Why? And you have two, so you have a choice. You have between Coke and Pepsi, and then you taste. What makes you stay on this other side, as opposed to be like, okay, I tried it and okay, it didn't work so good. Let me go back to what I'm used to. And the point is that this, when you try something, these things are there and they make life easier for people. They might not be good, they might, but let's just be honest. I'll give you an example. Like, we know that, okay, traditionally we had polygamy. Men have were allowed to marry as many women as as your wealth can support. And then now when you're on a continent now, you talk to most women especially, they would be like, nah, they're not going to go for that. But why is it that they're not going for that? And that's because that system becomes more of a problem when you have people who are not wealthy anymore, because not everybody owns all those pieces of land where they can. So you have a man that can have 2 or 3 women, but he cannot even support one wife. So a woman will be like, if somebody comes and say, we have this other system, and you don't have to have your husband doesn't have to have many wives in this system. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is that because these systems have a way of solving a problem that the other systems have stopped solving. So so that's why when you're tasting that chicken, you taste it, but you don't leave it alone and go back to what you had, because what I had was actually much better. Because these things, like with the traditions, they keep changing. So that's why all these things are happening, because no matter how much we say with the history, with the modern times, each and every culture at some point have stopped evolving to solve the ongoing developments and problems that those different tribes or societies are facing. And that's why it becomes easier to find another system that might make your life easier with the modern issues and problems.
I appreciate that, Emiket, because I answered it, and Kofi, your answer answered it. But both y'all combined was perfect. So here's the thing. Now this is my comment, and I'm gonna fall back. That's excellent. So here's what we can take away from those two answers, is that culture is not always a positive push, and I don't mean positive as in good. I'm talking about just a pushing force. It's also maybe I should use offense. Culture is not always the offense. Culture also has to have a built-in defense as well. And what I find a lot of people do, they only focus on the offensive plays of culture and not on the defensive plays of culture. So if it is innate in human beings to be impressionable and influential, and if a culture holds certain things as its top virtue and priorities, then that culture has to also know that it has to defend that from this influence if that's just in the nature of how the world turns. So there has to be embedded in the culture a defense from that. And so if you are ignorant of something and you try it and you don't fall back, then that culture has actually failed you. And I don't think people will admit that the culture failed in that situation. So instead they just adjust and these cultures adapt. So what a lot of times African Americans or people in the diaspora, when they go and convert to an African culture, they're stuck on a screenshot of it, and they're not. You know how a merry-go-round goes around, and then people are on the merry-go-round, and you want to get on it. You know how if you try to just jump on a merry-go-round while it's spinning, you can get clipped up. You got to actually run with it first, then jump on. And so, what a lot of people when they convert to these cultures or these traditions on the continent, they just jump on and they take it as a screenshot, not knowing that the culture is fluid. It's fluid, it's moving and it's changing, it's constantly changing. It's not stagnant and it's not static. And so that's what people got to understand. And so I just wanted to say that. I mean, it's a whole lot more we could say, but I ain't trying to hog the mic. Plus, I gotta want to do some things. But yeah, I appreciate that. I'm gonna come back and watch the presentation. But that's something to think about: the offense and defense of a culture. There has to be a cultural defense mechanism, the immune system of a culture. If your culture, if a pathogen outside of your culture is allowed to come into your culture and your cultural immunity is not up to par, that pathogen is going to come in and wreak havoc. And that's what's happening to a lot of these cultures is the viruses or pathogens are coming in and changing things around. And if that's the case, then people need to admit that the culture is failing. Period. And they need vaccinated. So I'll leave it at that.
Hey, Kofi, I gotta go too, man. Hey, thanks for having me on the panel. Y'all appreciate it. And it's for that get the like an African perspective who are in the on the continent like in real time. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's very, very eye opening. And I think it's too, it's like what happens when tribalism meets civilization. You know what I'm saying? But good bill, y'all, and peace, and I'm out.
Anybody else got anything? Anybody else got any more comments in the chat? I ain't even looked in the chat.
I got a question. Another question. It should be quick. What is the highest, or maybe one of the highest, if not the highest, one of the highest expressions of culture, like elements, like what makes a culture out of that laundry list of things that make a culture? What is the highest or one of the highest things that will represent a culture?
I mean, it's a few of them. I mean, procreation, good character,
I'm talking about that will make a culture identifiable. Like not because everybody wants to procreate, but I'm saying like what makes a specific culture, what in a culture is one of the highest forms of expressions of that specific culture. If you know what I'm trying to ask.
I'm kind of confused. I mean, because when you look at, I'm kind of confused because, I mean, when you look at most of the cultures, I mean, most of the cultures, most of the cultures are the same. Most of them have the same thing. Some things vary or some things different, and what makes them stand out, is you mentioned scarification. Scarification is one. Um, Painting, what I'm saying, painting the body is one. Decoration of the hair, the dress styles, tattoos, piercings. I mean, but majority that what makes the culture stands out. But most of them, when you look at most of the cultures, it's gonna deal with the same. It's gonna deal with no matter where you go, East Africa, whether you go to South Africa, Central Africa, West Africa, the same thing. You know, they deal with supreme being, lesser deities, ancestor worship, offering, sacrifice, procreation, good character, or building good character, or molding good character,
Okay, so let me
acknowledging someone's existence, huh?
okay, let me narrow it down because I think you're getting it. But let me narrow it down. If you lived in if you live on a continent right now, and you were part and parcel of a particular culture, and you had to go to a international event, and just you, Kofi Piesie, you were responsible for representing your culture to the world, to all the other ones. What about your culture would you use to represent it in a definitive way where it's identified, like that is that culture? What that's what I'm asking. Like the if not the highest thing or one of the highest things. That's what I meant. Like what would make your culture identifiable as your culture and is not the same as what everybody else does?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe
It's all on you, Kofi. You got it. You got to represent your culture, man. You got it. You got it.
Kofi, you from the South. You better say soul food.
What you?
Yeah, he's saying if I was a part of a African tribe. I mean,
Well, let me ask Emicat because she probably because from her perspective, it'll probably be better because she could put a real perspective on it. So Emicat, the same question to you if you heard me.
Oh, okay. I think, for example, what would make me Luo and identify me as Luo and somebody else as Masai or whatever would be the language that we speak and then the customs, so the traditions that we follow that would make us distinct from a different set. So that would make us distinctive as this particular culture, the Luo culture.
Okay, so what would make
But
Luo,
I think
the Luo people are for Kenya, right?
From different countries, Kenya, Uganda.
Okay,
East
so
Africa.
what would make the Luo people different from the Kikuyu people?
Yes, that would be the language and the customs. So and I think you kind of broke down what the different customs were, like all that stuff. But just to kind of make it broad, will just be the language that we speak, and then the customs will be the traditions, and all that stuff that you elaborated on.
Okay, so basically what you have at your disposal is the language and then some expression of the culture. So that's what you would have to bring to the table to represent yourself. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. All right, good. That's good. Straight.
Yeah, I'm finna get ready to end this, but I didn't want this to be too long. I should have just stopped it, like you said, Wuja, the other week. I think I don't know what we was
Yep,
on.
I told you do an after party on every
Yeah.
day so you can separate. But you could split it in YouTube. I think somebody was telling me that too. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that, and because this is
I'm sorry.
it's all good. It spiraled into something I didn't even think it was gonna go to. And I'm just real quick, I'm just gonna reiterate that again. This presentation wasn't about attacking homosexuality, which it wasn't at all. I didn't say any derogatory thing about anybody. I also said that I love I have family members and don't treat them any different and don't love them any different. Um and I didn't say that homosexuality ain't in Africa. I didn't say that one time on here or show any slide to try to prove what I said. And also just from my perspective, also, I wouldn't treat no one else different in what we call this so-called conscious community or Pan-African community, RBG community, whatever community that we encase in blackness uh, up under. I wouldn't treat them no different. I feel a certain type of way about it. It's anti-life to me, but I wouldn't treat them no different, especially if they are, like Queen Cheetah was saying, if they was doing, doing the work, if they was motivating, inspiring, uplifting, creating betterment change for the race or for the community. I have the utmost respect for those individuals. Again, I just believe that it is uh, anti-life. Two people of the same sex cannot reproduce and bring forth
Look at Sean
life.
in the chat doing some research, Kofi.
Who?
Say, look at Sean in the chat doing
Oh,
some research.
but yeah, I just hope everybody go back and look at the presentation, because again, like I said, it spiraled and went
Hey, Kobe,
somewhat.
I think it was probably the wording of the title that probably caused maybe the contention.
Nah, no, because the title was a question. So I think it's just because once the presentation was done,
Right,
then
because if you
there
watch
was
the whole
just
presentation, you'll see that that's not where
and
he's trying to go.
and he ended it
It's
with a question and all that.
right,
But I think it's just because once the presentations are done, then when people start discussing, then other things get brought up.
right.
That open for the discussion. But yeah, Kofi asked a question and he ended it with a question, and the answer was no, pretty much.
I'm blaming Queen Cheetah.
I'm sorry, y'all. That's not what I was trying to do. I was just saying, if we saying they African, yes, we can say that they African, or then we would have to first then pose the question, what's the definition of what makes them to be African? So
it was a good question, to be honest.
I didn't mean it to go left. I'm so sorry. That's
No more, Cheetah.
No, you welcome. You welcome anytime. You welcome anytime, man. It just, like I said, it went left, and then I apologized for anybody that I talk loud. Like I said, I tell people, if you know my mama, she talk loud. I talk loud, so I get it honestly. But I did get a little frustrating because what frustrating is, I always say, even if I'm not presenting anything, if I'm on Kofi Piesie TV, or I might be on set shoot my auntie Meta Nature. Like last night, I was telling people take out their pens and pad. Wherever I'm at, I'm always saying take out your pencil and paper, because a lot of times, you know, we'll repeatedly, it's I get frustrated if I have to keep repeating things like over and over and over, especially if we talk about it. Like on this channel and Kofi Piesie TV, we talk about Africa, we talk about African culture and tradition. And not only African culture tradition, we talk about the African American experience as well. But most of it deals with the traditions and the culture. So we try to expose you to African cultures and traditions. And even with the presentation, when I was talking about the people, what they do with the people that have children unwedded, I talked about this with the Hamhara presentation a year and a half ago. I talked about this with the Hamra presentation a year ago. I talked about this with the people in Tanzania a year ago. So a lot of, it's just certain things I get frustrated because we had to keep repeating ourselves. So we try to bring you the information, whether it's good or bad. We're gonna bring it, and then I'll let you know I agree with it. I don't agree with this. Do we need to throw this away? Yes, throw this away. Do I think we need to keep this? And I'm giving you my own personal opinions when I do it. I'm not trying to tell you, okay, this what I'm saying is law, and you have to abide by what I'm saying, because I've been studying African culture for a few years now. That's not what I'm saying. I just get frustrated when people continue to ask the same questions over and over, or I just get frustrated is because we do the presentations, or I do the presentation. I'm not speaking for anybody on the Masi or Kofi Piesie TV affiliates or Seshima Nimeta Netcher, but I just get frustrated, and a lot of times I be wanting to quit because I feel like what I'm doing is in vain. I could be spending time with my fiance. I could be spending more. I could be back there playing a game with my son. I get my son on the weekend. I don't live with my son anymore, so my son don't live with me anymore. So I could be getting all that time with my son when he here on the weekend, or spending time with my stepdaughter, or going to visit my mother, or going to visit my grandmother. But I try to bring y'all the information because I know a lot of us have a lot of questions about African culture and traditions, especially their indigenous way of living. What were they practicing? What were they eating? How were they living? How were they speaking? How were they treating each other in the community? How were they treating a woman? How was the woman recognized? How was the man recognized? What was the role of the children? How you became an elder? How you become a ancestor? What is the rites of passage? So I try to bring you these things, but it just frustrates me when I have to keep repeating myself. But it lets me know too that, you know, a lot of people don't watch. A lot of people just don't watch. A lot of people just don't pay any attention. And it frustrates me when I have to repeat myself. It even frustrates me at times where I just don't want to even do it anymore. You know what I'm saying? Because of the constant questions over and over. And we have been covering this I've been doing this for 3 years on YouTube, far as covering West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, and Central Africa, as well as a little bit longer with North Africa with the Seshu. But, you know, just the repeating of questions, you know, over and over and over again, it just kind of get frustrating when we talk about it all the time, or we got tons of presentations on it, you know, and I try to slow it down like Saber do. You know, I did a whole presentation on the different factors on certain things. So if you want to know about scarification, it's a whole thing on scarification, a whole thing on tattooing, it's a whole thing on marriage, it's a whole thing on birth, it's a whole thing on breaking down. So it's my thing to get away from African spirituality, because that's a diaspora African concept. Nothing wrong with it, but let's call them by the name. So I try to give you Fataru. I try to give you Gulu Wankulu. I try to give you Akum. I try to give you Ifa. I try to give you all these other different indigenous systems, so you can call them by the name and we can get away from it. Okay, well, no, the Syrup people call it this. Oh, okay, the Khan people call it this, the Ul people call it this, the Chui people call it, the Bamana people call it this. So, but I'm just saying it just get frustrating at times. So again, I apologize if some people took it a wrong way for me getting loud or making it. Well, I didn't even, the camera went on when I was making some faces, just getting frustrated over the constant answers of presentations that we have already on the platform. So just go check them out, man. Again, I apologize. I hope y'all enjoy the presentation. I hope y'all enjoy the build that we had afterwards. I don't know if Sean coming back on a little bit later on the Mossy. I was coming back on Kofi Piesie TV to talk about the two different the Negro Latinos and the Bazina, if I'm pronouncing it right. Those two different African groups. Those two groups in Africa. One set of group was converted to Christianity, became servants, traveled with the European, and then the other group of people didn't get that privy, went straight into doing other different things, breaking that down. Maybe we'll do that in the future, but I ain't coming back on today.
We appreciate you, Kofi, and yeah, you're right. You know, you have left no stone unturned on a continent, so you go through it all. And to be quite honest, we don't have time to learn all that, so we appreciate you really for taking the time to do all that for us. So yeah, but you're definitely getting that title for MC Outlines. I see. I understand now why.
Can you not hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
All right. First of all, stop apologizing for being you. I keep telling you that. So if you're passionate about something, you speak it how you want to speak it. There ain't no apology, and that they either will respect it or check it. I mean, don't apologize for being you, because that's what people like.
So then why you time me out for being what I said then?
I ain't timing you out.
You did.
I'm not talking to you right now. Don't get kicked off the panel. So what I'm trying to say is to Kofi right now, Caleb. Do not apologize for being you, because that's what people like. And every time you apologize for something that is an attribute for many people in their eyes, it just means like you know, it just takes away from your delivery. And if you're gonna change your delivery for the sake of the entertainment of another person, then I would take offense to that because I like the passionate Kofi. You know what I'm saying? Just like I like the passionate just like I like the passionate Asar, just like I like the passionate Saber. You know what I'm saying? It's a Jetty and so on and so forth. So if you're going to be away, be the same way you've been because you know what I mean. You doing the work. Um, People don't give people credit for a lot of things that is done. It's no big deal for me. I'm just saying, like we do a whole lot of work. We read a whole lot of books. We invest a whole lot of money, and people think that only a certain people doing certain things. But no, we we started off our journey. I might have started a little bit before you, but we started off our journey when we were dealing with the transatlantic kidnapping of our ancestors, chasing the Portuguese. The Portuguese took us all around the continent of Africa. In that, that made us start learning more about the other ethnicities or tribes and clans and so on and so forth that the Portuguese would come in contact with. So in our journey, we are where we are now on specific points because we're dealing with subject matters that people really don't have the conversations about. So I understand why Kayla is so passionate about her position on how she feels things should run. But again, if we're looking at this from a worldview, then you have to consider the world's view. But if we're looking at it from a we limit it down to the continental Africans' perspective based on the encounterment of colonialism, then we have to minimize that worldview to what we actually witnessed during the coming of colonialism and the influence of all these invaders to the continent that push these agendas in certain areas. And I'm not saying what I'm saying now to say that certain behaviors come from outside of the continent. I wouldn't dare argue that I have grown out of that perspective. But what I'm saying is that what you did today was you did what you were supposed to do. You just had the only reason I even butted in and interjected into the conversation at all was because I just sat there and I was listening. I'm like, hold on. But how are we looking at this from what lens view? So that's why I was asking the questions that I was asking and saying the things that I was asking, because the lens is the most important perspective in when dealing with information. So when you go into the tribes and you start naming these different practices and cultures that you were doing, it's evident that people aren't looking at it that way. So how are we looking at it is important. So in order to advance knowledge, you know, you're gonna have these conversations. It's gonna get passionate. You're gonna have people that feel more passionate about their position than other people feel about their position, and that's okay. But please, if you're gonna come on here and you're gonna feel passionate about your position, be passionate enough to respect the fact that we actually did the work to put forth you being passionate enough to express your opinion and just review the other work as well. That's all I got. I'm out.
All right. Sister Kayla, I'm just looking in the chat. Now you said you still don't see your question answer either. So what is the defection or deflection, I guess, of what makes a person African? I don't know if you walked away from, I know you say you was in and out when you was talking about it. That's why I said let's throw away, and that's why I put the other slide back up there, my last slide, you know, and asking the question. And I said accepted by, let's throw the African out. I said accepted by those different ethnic groups. And even through the presentation, I showed different ethnic groups and what is, you know, how their culture is. You know, so I gave the different examples with these cultures. So again, let's throw African out. I know we use the word, I'm African, and we use that word because again, a lot of us um ancestors came here via the Atlantic slave trade. So we have no clue of who we are and where we come from and what our ancestors stood for and what they practiced, right? So, but today we have DNA. Now we have where we can take DNA tests and it can trace us back to a Pacific country in Africa. Then we have certain things that they can use through DNA to trace us down to a Pacific ethnic group. There are over 3,000 and some ethnic groups in Africa. Majority of the groups in Africa, those ethnic groups, whether you are part of any of those groups in West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, or West Africa, according to the traditions, if their traditions is that the, again, like I said, that if their traditions is the highest quality of Africa, whatever it is, I'm just gonna say whatever the standards. If you're a part of a group and you're a part of, let's say you're a part, let's just say you're a part of the Njai group, or you're a part of the Badak group of people. And these groups, their way of life is to treat a woman that bears a child at the highest, revere this woman at the highest level as possibly. If you come from the same group and it teaches you that you should acknowledge someone's being, so everyone that you see, you should acknowledge them as a human being by speaking, acknowledging their existence, i.e., hence good character. If you come from that culture that tells you to, that teaches you to, show you how to cultivate good character, where you become the highest human being as possible in most African culture, you are looked at as a human being according to this tradition, according to the character, good character, which I have done something on character numerous of times. And in case, what is good character? The whole list of things. So if you're following that code of conduct or that culture, or that tradition, or those laws, or those morals, or those ethics, or those edicts according to that ethnic group, then you are who you say you are. If you're not following them according to whatever their tradition is, according to that ethnic group, you know what I'm saying, then you're not who you say you are. So let's throw the African word away. So it's according to what group that you belong to. I belong to two Pacific groups. I belong to two groups in West Africa, in Ghana and in Nigeria. There are numerous of ethnic groups in Nigeria. There are numerous groups in Ghana. Two Pacific groups that a lot of people know about is Akun, practiced by the Shanti, the U, the Ga, the Akan, etc. Even though there is the Akan is practiced in other different ethnic groups. You look in Benin, the same thing. You look in Haiti, the same thing. You look at Nigeria, most people know of Ifa and what's the name? And according to the Akum system, they have their culture and their tradition. So those people that has that culture and tradition, those people in Nigeria that has their culture and their tradition, if you say you're a part of the Yoruba people, they have morals, ethics, and edicts that they go by. This is what makes them who they are. If you're a part of the Akan people, they have their same morals, ethics, and edicts. So if you say you are Akan and you look at their traditions, and this is what's encased in their tradition, and you begin to become a practitioner. So now I know, okay, I know this brother is Akan. I can tell by the language that he speaks, which may be Twi. I may understand. So okay, he may be Akan. He speaks Twi, or she speaks Twi. Oh, he may be calm because I hear her speak the name Iyami. I hear her speak the name Iyami. So I mean, or it may be certain colors. Okay, she wear red at this certain type of festival right here all week long. She wearing this color red, and she had this certain type of sash and certain types of design patterns, or a design pattern that they have on doing a funeral rite. So okay, I know, or the name may be an Akan name, i.e. Or a Ghanese name, i.e. a Kofi Piesie. So this brother may be from one of those particular groups that's out of Akan. So it is So again, it's according to what ethnic groups make you who you say you are. And just because you say you something don't mean you something if you're not practicing. Again, I can say I'm anything, but if you don't see it, you know what I'm saying, I may not be it. You see what I'm saying? If I say I'm something and I'm a doctor, you don't see me with a doctor uniform with a slash, you don't see me in a hospital, you don't see me talking about or talking the language of medicine or even doing the procedures. I'm just saying I'm something that I'm not. So I hope what I'm saying answer your question or what I'm saying. Just throw the word African in out, because I know we use the word African all the time because we don't know exactly where we come from in Africa or what group that we
Yeah,
belong.
so that does answer my question. So I understand, I get your point as far as you know, practicing, you know, whatever culture you are going to claim. So yes, then if you claim in that culture, then yes, you should be following that cultural law. But for what I'm saying is going to that back then and now, I don't agree with the fact that we should shun them or look at them any differently because they choose to sleep with the same sex. Now, whether or not you feel as though that my thought or that my thinking process of that is westernized, that's your opinion. But I feel like when it comes down to it, that's how is that morally okay to be like, oh, we're going to shun you or put you to death or whatever, you know, the law is in that particular culture because you choose to sleep with the same sex. Now I do understand as far as, you know, the whole procreation and life, I get that part of it as well. But what I'm saying as far as morals, how can we, whether it be then and or today, say that we are going to disown them or look at them differently because they choose to sleep with the same sex?
I mean, and
Is that
again, it's I didn't, and again, I didn't say
no,
that.
no, I'm not saying you, Kofi. I'm just saying, like, when I say
Can I
we,
jump in?
in
Can I?
general, like terms. I'm not saying you specifically because I know you didn't say that. But when I say we, because a lot of it is a lot of times with most people, they either are going to look on them differently or shun them or whatever, or not. Now you've already stated that you have family that doesn't make you love them any less or any different. They know your stance on it. I get that. I'm not saying that. When I'm saying we, I'm just speaking in general. So I'm not directing it to you per se. I'm just saying it's like a collective thing.
So you had some?
Yeah,
I'm finna end.
I was gonna say that's where the distinction is made, is those cultural preferences and norms being defined. And if you raised up in those, the taboos of that culture are defined. And that's what it really, what the highlight of what I took away from this was, um, something that was reiterated, but I don't think it was stamped in, was what value are our cultures putting towards human life. It is a value thing. It was the value towards human existence. That in itself, sexual preference is a different conversation. And I think that's where a lot of the stimulating part of the conversation took away from what was going on.
Yeah.
But to try to answer that question fairly, it would be, you would know what things are shameful within your own culture of what not to do and the consequences of it. And I think that's where the dividing line of this conversation really never really got established. And that is the person within the culture going against the grain and creating a taboo, knowing ahead of time, versus someone outside looking in saying, well, we can tolerate that because we do it here or they do it there, versus your parents told you flat out 5 o'clock be in the house. It didn't matter who else was outside playing. You knew the rules. You get where I'm going?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. But all right, family. Appreciate y'all for watching, man. Again, like I always say the same thing. I value y'all time. Y'all could have been doing anything else with y'all time, but y'all tuned in to check out the show. So appreciate that. If you missed the presentation called the dialogue, please go back and look at the presentation. It wasn't a long presentation. Got slides was very short. So go back and check out the presentation if you hadn't checked out the presentation. Jumped in during the discussion part of it. Appreciate everybody that joined the panel. Peace, Queen Cheetah, joined the panel. Peace, Brother Vasa, Brother Chavis, Brother Sutek, Brother Saber Wujao, who joined, who left, Brother Emicat, who joined, and left my good brother Eni Erection, Cal, Funny Satep and Ra, Mary Amin. Appreciate y'all for joining the panel. Y'all always welcome back to the family, to the channel. Y'all all family, man. Again, I want to say Black African Power. I want to say continue to support the channel, continue to support Master Warrior Clans, continue to support Kofi Piesie TV, continue to support Seshu Ma'ani Metanetra channel, support my favorite channel right now, New Black Knowledge channel. Shout out to those brothers over there, True Historian, Alan, Kaba, Seneb, Jehuti, maybe a few others, but those are the ones that I know that I actually bring in the information. There's a few other, Chris Logic, peace to that brother as well. He's on the financial tip. So peace to those folks. And I want to say Black African Power, and I'm going to say Shem Imhotep. Shem Imhotep just means to depart in peace. So I'm asking everybody in the chat and everybody on the panel, please depart in peace, man. We'll see y'all next week or during the week or whatever the case may be, man. Black African Power, man. And we out. Bryson, what are you doing? Hold on. All right. Hold on. I'm finna